Chapter 2915 Traitor Must Die. The Dragon Claw stomped down and grabbed at a first-level Divine King. The first-level God King Realm expert was an elder of the unique Devil Academy. His expression changed drastically and his godly power surged. He activated beams of godly light, wanting to break through Yulong's attack and escape. However, with Yulong's current strength, it was very easy for him to deal with a first-level Divine King. With a swipe of his Dragon Claw, the attack of the first-level Divine King was instantly shattered. Ah! An unwilling and shrill scream was heard. The first-level Divine King expert's body burst like a balloon from the dragon's claw. A God King had fallen just like that. Kill the people from the unique Devil Academy first. On the dragon's head, Lu Ming said coldly. As expected, Yulong had specifically targeted the people from the unique Devil Academy and killed them. Many people were shocked. They did not expect that such a powerful Yulong would really listen to Lu Ming. Stop him, the Demonic Academy's college chief roared continuously. Together with the other experts, he continuously launched attacks. However, Yulong ignored their attacks and allowed them to land on his body. He was completely fine. Pucci. After a while, another senior statesman of the unique Demon Academy was caught by the Dragon Claw. With a tearing sound, he was torn into two and died on the spot. Another God King of the unique Devil Academy had died. The three overlords and the God Kings of the other top factions were almost scared out of their wits. Some of the first-level God Kings even retreated. The Demonic Academy's college chief let out a furious roar. His heart was bleeding. That was two God Kings. In the Qin Heaven Star region, God Kings were considered peak powers. Even the three hegemon powers didn't have many God Kings. Now that two of them had died, his heart ached. Retreat. The Demonic Academy's dean finally decided to retreat. With a furious roar, he led the other experts of the Demonic Academy and quickly retreated. He pulled away from Yulong and did not dare to continue attacking. As for the Immortal Sword sect and the Boundless Holy Land as well as the other top sects, they retreated even faster. They retreated far away before the Yimo Academy. Kill? Yulong roared. He didn't want to let his opponent off so easily. He twisted his body and charged forward again. Let's go. The expressions of the experts from the three overlord forces and the other top sects changed. They didn't dare to stay any longer. They turned around and ran as far away as they could. The others may leave, but the traitors must stay. On the dragon's head, Lu Ming's voice echoed throughout the entire area. After that, Yulong changed his direction and charged towards Jizun and the people from the Jizun clan. Damn it, let's go, run. Supreme Being Dong roared as he used his divine power to escape with Supreme Universe. However, there were many people in the Supreme Clan, and the others didn't have this speed. Yulong twisted his body and caught up with the large group of people from the Supreme Clan. Spare me. Many Supreme Being clans, people cried out in fear. Traitors must pay the price. Go. Lu Ming said coldly. Dark Dragon's huge dragon claw swiped down. Bang. Large groups of Supreme Clan members exploded. Under the terrifying power of Yulong, they turned into ashes, their bodies and spirits destroyed. In an instant, hundreds of people from the Supreme Clans had fallen. The Supreme Being no longer cared about the other members of the Supreme Being Clan. He brought the most talented junior of the Supreme Being Clan, Supreme Universe, and the other two God Kings of the Supreme Being Clan fleeing madly. If the autarchs move, you won't be able to escape. Lu Ming roared. The Bone Demon controlled the Dark Dragon and chased after the Supreme Being. Yulong's body was huge and was hundreds of thousands of meters long. With a twist of his body, a terrifying power burst forth. Wherever he passed by, a large number of people from the Supreme Clans were killed. The reason why Lu Ming was so decisive and merciless was to intimidate them. It would intimidate the other members of Kongxian sect who wanted to betray him. As expected, upon seeing this scene, many of the Kongxian sect disciples turned pale and broke out in cold sweat. They rejoiced inwardly that they had not surrendered before. If they had surrendered, they would probably have ended up like this. We can't let the traitor go. The traitor must be punished. At this moment, Wuxia shouted. That's right. We can't let the Supreme Clan off. Kongxian sect disciples, follow me and kill all the traitors. The other Doyen also shouted and soared into the sky, charging towards the people of the Supreme Clan. Kill. The entire Kongxian sect charged towards the Supreme Clan. How could a single Supreme Being clan be a match for the entire Kongxian sect? In a short while, all the members of the Supreme Being clan had been surrounded, and a bloody battle had begun. Don't spare me. Senior Brother Gu, we have such a good relationship. Please spare me. The people from the Supreme Clan begged for mercy. Traitor, don't try to befriend me. I was blind in the past and mistook you as a friend. Die in peace. Kill. How could the people of the Kongshen sect show any mercy? In order to prove their loyalty and that they were not on the same side as the Supreme Clans, they attacked even more ruthlessly. Large groups of people from the Supreme Clan were killed. At this moment, the Dark Dragon was carrying Lu Ming and was about to catch up with the Supreme Being Dong and the other two Divine Kings from the Supreme Being Clan. Director, help, help. Supreme Martial Artist Dong shouted loudly and asked the Dean of the Unique Devil Academy for help. He knew very well that with his strength he was no match for Yulong. If Yulong caught up to him, only death would await him. Only the Dean of the Unique Demon Academy could save them. However, the Dean of the Unique Demon Academy did not even bother to pay attention to him. He did not even look at him as he quickly flew forward. What a joke. Why would he save Supreme Martial Artist Dong and the others? He was actually hoping that Supreme Martial Artist Dong and the others would be caught up to. That way he would be able to delay them and allow them to escape safely. When the Supreme Martial Artist saw that the Unique Devil Academy's college chief was too lazy to pay attention to him, a look of despair appeared on his face. Demon Executioner, you're despicable and shameless. You'll die a terrible death. Supreme Martial Artist Dong roared in anger and cursed continuously. The Supreme is moving. You're courting death. The eyes of the Demonic Academy's college chief turned cold. He turned around and slashed his demonic sword at the Supreme Martial Artist. The Supreme Martial Artist was greatly alarmed, and he repeatedly launched attacks to block. Although this was a casual strike from the Demonic Academy's college chief, its might was still terrifying. Even though the Supreme move had been blocked, he had no choice but to stop. The moment he stopped, Lu Ming caught up to him. Paragon's move? Die. The Dark Dragon's Dragon Claw clawed at the Supreme Martial Artist. This claw was much more powerful than the sword attack of the Unique Devil Academy's Dean. Paragon Divine Fist. Supreme move roared madly as his body glowed with a brilliant golden light. He punched out continuously with both fists, sending huge golden fist prints towards the Dark Dragon's claw. However, the Supreme move was only at the second level of the Divine King realm. If Yulong could suppress a third-level Divine King, how could a second-level Divine King resist it? Bang! Bang! A series of explosions rang out as the fist force of Supreme Being Dong crumbled. The Dragon Claw didn't stop as it struck Supreme Being Dong's body. Chapter 2916 The Sorrow of a Supreme Dark Dragon's huge Dragon Claw struck Supreme Being Dong's body. Supreme Being Dong let out a blood-curdling screech as his body was sent flying a few thousand miles away. He spat out a large mouthful of blood as half of his body exploded. He looked as miserable as he could be. Even Supreme Universe, who was beside Supreme Movement, was affected. His lower body was shattered, and he floated in the air with a look of horror as he screamed repeatedly. When the other two God Kings of the Supreme Clan saw this, their expressions changed drastically. Without even thinking, they split into two directions and flew off at high speed, leaving the Supreme Clan behind to deal with them. Lu Ming, leave the two traitors to us. At that moment, the two elders flew past Lu Ming and chased after the two God Kings from the Supreme Clan. They were two extremely powerful elders of the Kongshen sect. They were both at the second tier of the God King realm. The two God Kings from the Supreme Clan who had escaped were only at the first level of the God King realm. They were unable to escape from the pursuit of a second-level God King. Yulong stopped and looked at Supreme Move and Supreme Universe with his cold eyes. Both Supreme Movement and Supreme Universe revealed looks of despair. Lu Ming, I'm begging you. Spare me. As long as you spare me, I'll be your slave and follow you wholeheartedly. All of a sudden, Universe Master screamed and begged Lu Ming for mercy. Chen Kun, what are you doing? If you want to die, then die. Why do you have to beg for mercy from him? The men of my Supreme family, even if you die, you must die with a backbone. Supreme Martial Artist Dong shouted. Shut up. If you want to die, I don't want to accompany you. Supreme Universe shouted at Supreme Being Dong with a malevolent expression. He was the son of heaven. He had a bright future. With his talent, breaking through to the Divine King realm was almost certain. Once he reached the God King realm, his lifespan would increase exponentially, allowing him to live for 5-star years. With such a long lifespan, how much happiness could he enjoy? Why did he have to die? In order to live, he could give up any backbone. Immediately, the Universe Master turned to look at Lu Ming with a fawning expression. Lu Ming, no, Holy Son Lu Ming, as long as you let me go, I'll do anything you want. He'll be loyal to you in the future. He really is shameless. I've really misjudged him in the past. Someone like him can actually become the #1 saint of our Kongxian sect." Seeing the Supreme Holy Son's face, many of the Kongxian sect disciples looked at him with disdain. "Oh, if you want me to let you go, it's not impossible. How about this, you go kill him and he'll let you go." Lu Ming pointed at the supreme martial artist. "Kill him? However, he's a divine king expert. I'm not his match at all." Supreme Universe said with an ugly expression. "That's easy, Yulong." Lu Ming sent Yulong a voice transmission. "Kill?" Dark Dragon roared and pounced toward the supreme martial artist. At this moment, Supreme Being Dong had already suffered heavy injuries and was unable to escape at all. He could only barely resist. However, Dark Dragon's Dragon Claw swiped down and sent Supreme Being Dong flying. This time, Supreme Martial Artist Dong's injuries were even more severe. His entire body was in tatters, and even his divine flame had almost been extinguished. His strength was reduced to less than 1,000th of what it had been. Now he doesn't have much strength left. Go and kill him. I promise you, as long as you kill him, I will definitely not kill you." Lu Ming said. "Alright, I'll go kill him." Supreme Universe gritted his teeth and charged towards Supreme Move. "Supreme Universe, you dare?" Supreme Martial Artist Dong roared in anger, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had not expected that the Universe Master would really want to kill him. The Supreme Being moved. "Didn't you say that I was the future hope of the Supreme Being clan? As long as I'm alive, the Supreme Clan will be able to rise in the future. Do you understand?" Supreme Universe secretly transmitted a message to Supreme Being Dong. At the same time, his body glowed and he used the Supreme Divine Fist to attack Supreme Being Dong. "You disobedient son!" Jizun Dong bellowed. He was extremely disappointed with the Supreme Universe Master. Moreover, he did not want to be captured without putting up a fight. He would rather die at Lu Ming's hands than at the hands of the Supreme Universe Master. If he really died at the hands of the Supreme Universe Master, the reputation of the Supreme Universe family would go down in history for thousands of years and they would become a laughingstock. Thus the Autarch began to resist. He mustered up his remaining strength and also punched out. Boom. The attacks of Supreme Movement and Supreme Universe collided, causing a dazzling golden light to burst out. Then the two of them retreated rapidly. "If you still want to resist, die." The Universe Master roared in anger. In order to express his loyalty to Lu Ming, his eyes turned red as he charged at the Universe Master in a frenzy. However, Supreme Movement was still a second-tier God King. Although he was heavily injured and on the verge of death, he was still very strong when he went all out. He fought with Supreme Universe and it was difficult to tell who was winning. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged more than 100 moves. At this moment, the other two first-level God King experts from the Supreme Clan had already been taken down by the two second-level God King experts from the Kongxian sect and had their cultivation crippled. A large number of Kongxian sect elders and disciples surrounded the area, watching the battle between the Universe Supreme and the Universe Supreme from afar. The people from the three chiefs and some of the top forces had already escaped. Lu Ming did not let Yulong pursue them. With Yulong's current state, he could still slightly suppress the deans of the unique demon academy. However, it was impossible for him to kill the other party. Yulong's current state was that with the strength of his physical body, his defense was shocking. It was more than enough to protect himself, but his attack power was insufficient. Therefore, he could only let the other party escape. "Old man, why are you still resisting?" The Universe God had gone completely berserk, and he was constantly charging at the Autarch. At this moment, the two of them were already injured on top of their injuries. "Lu Ming, kill me. Just kill me." The Supreme Martial Artist roared, wanting to die in Lu Ming's hands. "There's a Supreme Family's dog at my command, why should I do it myself?" Lu Ming sneered. When Universe Master heard this, he burned with anger. However, he did not dare to show it for fear of causing Lu Ming's dissatisfaction. He could only vent all his anger on the Supreme Martial Artist. "AI, forget it, forget it." At this moment, the Grandmaster sighed. He didn't want to resist any longer. If he continued, he would only become a laughingstock. Supreme Movement suddenly retracted all of its divine power and did not continue to resist. Bang! Supreme Universe's fist landed on Supreme Being Dong's head, causing his head to explode. The Paragon moved and fell. A God King of a generation had died at the hands of a junior he valued the most. It was truly a great tragedy. "Haha, old man, you're finally dead." "Haha." The Universe Master laughed madly. After a long while, he stopped and looked at Lu Ming with a flattering expression. Holy Son Lu Ming, look. I've already killed the Supreme Being. Chapter 2917 Supreme Universe Falls in. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded and then said sarcastically, Supreme Universe, you're really worse than a pig or a dog. To save your life you actually killed your own elder. Crick. Supreme Universe clenched his fists tightly, feeling extremely humiliated. He lowered his head, and his eyes were filled with malevolent killing intent. Lu Ming, I'll compromise for now. As long as I keep my life, I'll make you pay 10 times, no, 100 or 1,000 times the price one day. I'll torture your family to death one by one in front of you. I'll cripple your cultivation and let you live like a dead dog in pain. The Universe Master roared madly in his heart. He hated Lu Ming to the core. However, the moment he raised his head, the killing intent and hatred in his eyes disappeared. There was only a smile. Holy Son Lu Ming is right. However, it's a pity that a Supreme Being is so stubborn to offend such a proud son of heaven like Holy Son Lu Ming. He deserves to die. Supreme Universe smiled apologetically. Shameless. Oh my God, he's really shameless. How shameless. Holy Son Lu Ming said that the Supreme Universe is worse than pigs and dogs. I used to respect him so much. It's so disgusting. Many of the Kong-Shen sect's disciples saw this and immediately cursed and ridiculed. Now, they were not afraid of the Supreme Universe. Grandmaster Universe Master's heart was filled with killing intent, but he still had a smile on his face. Holy Son Lu Ming, I can follow you from now on, right? Follow me? I only promised not to kill you, I didn't say I wanted you to follow me. Lu Ming said indifferently. Yes. I'm not fit to follow Holy Son Lu Ming. If there's nothing else, they'll take my leave. Universe Master nodded repeatedly. He was even happier that Lu Ming did not want him to follow him. Leave? The traitor still wants to leave? Lu Ming's voice turned cold. Universe Master's body stiffened, and his expression turned ugly. Holy Son Lu Ming, what's the meaning of this? You just said that if I kill the Supreme Being you'll spare me and let me go. That's right. I did promise not to kill you, but that's only on my behalf. I can't represent all the elders and disciples of the Kong-Shen sect. You've betrayed the Kong-Shen sect, so you'll naturally be punished by the Kong-Shen sect. Lu Ming said indifferently. Lu Ming, you're despicable, shameless, and you don't keep your word, the Supreme Universe roared angrily. He knew that he had fallen into Lu Ming's trap. When did I go back on my word? I said I won't kill you, so I won't kill you. However, I'm only the saint of the Kong-Shen sect. I don't have the right to represent the elders of the Kong-Shen sect. Elders, what do you think is the punishment for betraying the sect? Lu Ming looked at the elders of Kong-Shen sect. Betraying the sect, he should be executed. Wuxia said coldly. All right, then I'll leave this Supreme Universe to Elder Yu to handle. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, you are despicable and shameless, Supreme Universe roared hysterically. Now, how could he not know that from the beginning, Lu Ming had no intention of letting him off? Even the powerful Dark Dragon listened to Lu Ming's commands. Now, as long as Lu Ming said something, no one in the entire Kong-Shen sect would dare to disobey him. However, Lu Ming said that he could not represent the elders of Kong-Shen sect. Die, traitor. Wuxia stepped out. With a wave of his hand, a beam of moonlight slashed towards Supreme Universe. With Wuxia's cultivation, although he had suffered some damage previously, it was far from what the Universe Master could withstand. Lu Ming, I curse you, die. Universe Master roared, but before he could even finish his words, he was struck by Wuxia. His body was torn apart and his soul was destroyed. At this point, the Supreme Clan was almost completely annihilated. After dealing with the Supreme Being Clan, the people from the Kong-Shen sect looked at Lu Ming, especially at the Dark Dragon under his feet. Their eyes were filled with respect. The elder of Kong-Shen sect flew toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming, may I know who this is? Wuxia's gaze turned to Yulong. He was, of course, asking Yulong. This is a friend of mine. Lu Ming said with a smile. My friend. Everyone's eyes narrowed. In their eyes, Lu Ming had become even more unfathomable. Such a powerful existence was actually Lu Ming's friend. Clang, clang. Right at this moment, the sound of a bell rang out from within the Kong-Shen sect. This is a death knell. What's going on? Many people's expressions changed. The death knell would not be sounded under normal circumstances. It would only be sounded when an important figure of the Kong-Shen sect had fallen. The Kong-Shen sect had indeed lost an important figure this time, and that was Ji Zundong. However, Zhi Zundong was a traitor, so he would not sound the death knell because of him. The sect master has fallen. The sect master has fallen. At this moment, a white-haired old man flew out and called out sadly, "What? The sect master has fallen." Many people were shocked. "Elder Shang, what's going on? How did the sect master suddenly die?" One by one, the doyens flew towards the old man and asked, "I don't know either. I saw that the overall situation was settled, so I returned to the life palace and saw that the sect master's life plate was broken," Elder Shang Yuan said. Many important figures in the Kongshen sect had life tokens stored in their life palaces. Once a life jade was broken, it meant that he had fallen. What? How could this be? What happened? No wonder the sect master didn't appear before. Immediately, the entire Kongshen sect started discussing and making all sorts of guesses. However, no one knew the result. Naturally, Lu Ming would not tell them how the Dragon Boat Mountain had fallen. The death of the sect master is temporarily sealed and confidential. No one is to leak it out. In the end, the elders issued an order. However, they also knew that such a big matter couldn't be kept a secret for long. It was only a matter of time before it was leaked. They were secretly rejoicing that an expert like Yu Long was staying in the Kongshen sect. Otherwise, if the news of the fall of Dragon Boat Mountain were to be leaked, the Kongshen sect would most likely be in danger. Even some of the top forces wouldn't be afraid of them, let alone the three overlord forces. Then the elders of the Kongshen sect began to discuss what to do next. Lu Ming suggested that the various elders assist Ouyang Qingxiang and temporarily take charge of the Kongshen sect. When Ouyang Qingxiang became a divine king in the future, she would officially take over the Kongshen sect. Ouyang Qingxiang was a Zongzi to begin with. Since Lu Ming had spoken, the elders naturally agreed. Lu Ming's words now carried a lot of weight. The moment he opened his mouth, the elders of Kongshen sect had to consider it. Just like that, many elders helped Ouyang Xiangxiang manage the Kongshen sect, and the sect was on the right track. The Dark Dragon's secret realm. Lu Ming, this dark dragon is too heavily injured. I can still use this dark dragon's body for the time being. For the time being, he'll stay in the dark dragon's body and recuperate in the dark dragon's secret realm. As for the other matters, you'll have to rely on yourself, the Bone Devil's voice sounded. Chapter 2918 Star Core in hand. Alright, just focus on healing your injuries and don't worry about me. Lu Ming nodded and was looking forward to it. This dark dragon was originally an existence that surpassed God Kings. Once it recovered, it would be extremely terrifying. Of course, the dark dragon's soul had already been destroyed, and Bone Demon had only temporarily borrowed its body. It was impossible for him to recover to his peak. However, even if he did not recover to his peak, as long as he recovered to the peak of the Divine King realm, Lu Ming would be able to do whatever he wanted. Then he'll be leaving, Bone Demon said and controlled the Dark Dragon. With a twist of his body, he flew into the depths of the Dark Dragon's secret realm and disappeared. As for Lu Ming, he left the Dark Dragon's secret realm and soon arrived at a mountain peak. This mountain was an independent mountain belonging to the Kongshen sect. It was rich in divine qi and had an excellent cultivation environment. It was one of the top mountains in the entire Kongshen sect. However, it now belonged to Lu Ming alone. After setting up a simple array around the mountain peak, Lu Ming went to a large hall in the middle of the mountain peak and sat cross-legged. Then a storage ring appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Looking at the storage ring, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with strong anticipation. This was because this storage ring belonged to Dragon Boat Mountain. What kind of treasures could a sect leader's storage ring have? Lu Ming did not know about other things, but he knew that the core of the star must be in this storage ring. There's a restriction indeed. Lu Ming scanned the ring with his spiritual senses and found that there was indeed a restriction on the storage ring. However, this was the storage ring of the Dragon Boat Mountain. He couldn't ask the God King of the Kongshen sect for help, so he could only break this restriction himself. With a thought, the 6 divine fires in his dantian burned fiercely. With the ruler's divine power as the leader, the 6 types of divine power mixed together and surged toward the restriction on the storage ring. Lu Ming wanted to slowly erase the restrictions on it. Even with the mysterious power of the creator, Lu Ming still used a full 3 months to erase the restriction on the storage ring. As soon as the restriction was destroyed, Lu Ming's spiritual consciousness entered the ring and scanned it impatiently. The first thing he saw was a jade box in the spatial ring. Even though they were separated by the jade box, he could still feel the surging energy emanating from it. The star core. Lu Ming was certain that the jade box definitely contained a star core. His palm glowed and the jade box appeared in Lu Ming's palm. "It's so heavy." Lu Ming's expression changed and he almost could not hold the jade box. The weight of the jade box was shocking. "Brat, with your current cultivation, you can't absorb the core of this star." In his sea of consciousness, the voice of the quantity formula sounded. "Then what cultivation level does one need to be to absorb it?" Lu Ming said. "The core of this star was refined by someone with a great divine ability. It contains a lot of energy. You need to be at least at the divine king realm to absorb it. Otherwise both your soul and body will be burned to ashes." The quantity formula said. "Only God Kings can absorb it. How long would that take?" Lu Ming had a dejected look. Originally, he had obtained the core of the star and thought that he could use it to advance his cultivation by leaps and bounds. It seemed that he had thought too much. "Hee, kid, don't be depressed. Did you forget that you still have me?" The proud voice of the quantity formula sounded. You can absorb and refine the star core?" Lu Ming's tone was full of doubt. Back then, the measure word art had taken a long time to refine the dark dragon blood jade and the ancient god flower's energy. The energy in the core of a star was many times stronger than that of the dark dragon blood jade and the ancient god flower. Could the quantity formula refine it? Lu Ming had serious doubts. "Kid, what's with your tone? Are you doubting my ability?" "I'm so angry." The quantity formula roared. "I'm not doubting your ability, it's just... However, if it took you so long to refine the dark dragon blood jade and the ancient god flower's energy, wouldn't it take tens or hundreds of thousands of years to refine the star's core?" Lu Ming muttered. "Nonsense, kid, what do you know? I'm living in your body now, so I'm living in symbiosis with you. My ability is also determined by your cultivation base. If your cultivation base is weak, my ability will be weak. The higher your cultivation base, the higher my ability will be. In the past, my refining ability was weak because you were trash. Do you understand?" The quantity formula screamed. Lu Ming's face was covered in cold sweat. However, he finally understood that the energy of the quantity formula was closely related to his strength. This was reasonable. Otherwise, the quantity formula was one of the original ancient characters. The speed at which it refined energy was too slow. "Boy, now that your cultivation has reached the heavenly god realm, my refining energy has also been greatly improved. I can barely refine the star core, but I can only do it slowly, bit by bit. It will take a long time to completely refine it. However, even if it's just a little bit, once I transfer the refined energy to you, it will greatly increase your cultivation speed. Kid, the cultivation technique you're cultivating is special. You need to cultivate many kinds of divine power and divine flames. Especially when you reach the divine king realm, you will be able to condense more star cores than others. At that time, every time you break through a new realm, you will need many times more energy than the others. Your cultivation speed will also be many times slower. But with this star core, your cultivation speed will not be slow." The quantity formula went on and on. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. It was true that he cultivated the Qiankuan Thousand Dao Scroll and many Shin powers. The amount of energy he needed to break through was much more than others. In this way his cultivation speed would be very slow. Therefore, during this period of time, he did not dare to cultivate any other divine techniques, for fear that it would affect his cultivation speed. However, with this star core, he would not be afraid no matter how many divine techniques he cultivated or how much divine power he cultivated. "Old Liang, can you directly swallow this star core?" Lu Ming asked. "Of course you can." He recited the measure formula. Then Lu Ming's glabella lit up and a measure word flew out from his glabella. "Lu Ming, open the jade box." The quantity formula said. Lu Ming immediately circulated his divine energy and condensed 2 large hands with it. He grabbed the jade box and opened the lid. As soon as he opened the lid of the jade box, Lu Ming saw a crystal the size of a human head in the box. It was dazzling like a small sun, emitting a terrifying and boundless energy fluctuation. In an instant, there was a terrifying energy that was about to rush into the sky. Fortunately, the quantity formula rapidly enlarged and directly enveloped the star core. The next moment, the energy fluctuations disappeared, and so did the star core to avoid alarming others. After the quantity formula devoured the star core, it flew into Lu Ming's glabella and settled down in his sea of consciousness. Lu Ming knew that the quantity formula would take time to refine the star core. He just had to wait patiently for the harvest. Chapter 2921 Inextinguishable Sword Force. After dealing with the star core, Lu Ming started to organize the other items in the Dragon Boat Mountain storage ring. Even though he was mentally prepared, Lu Ming was still shocked. There were simply too many treasures in the storage ring. Low-grade divine crystals and middle-grade divine crystals were piled up like a mountain. Lu Ming did not know how many pieces there were. They were enough for him to use for a long time. There were also all sorts of divine pills with different functions, all of which were of excellent quality. In addition, all kinds of blacksmithing materials and metal attribute materials were also piled up like mountains. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles. After Qiu woke up, he would not have to worry about his food for a long time. In addition, there were also divine artifacts of various grades. Lu Ming had a thought and a crimson spear appeared in his hands. Bus. Lu Ming circulated his divine power and waved it. A terrifying roar was heard in the air. Good spear. Lu Ming revealed a smile. This was a level 9 high-quality divine artifact. It was most suitable for Lu Ming's current use. Lu Ming immediately refined the divine weapon. After refining it, the spear flew into Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. It would be very convenient to use it in the future. In addition, Dragon Boat Mountain had also collected many divine skill manuals, cultivation technique manuals, secret skill manuals, and so on. Lu Ming sorted through the contents. What made him the happiest was that there were 2 divine grade techniques in the pile. These 2 divine techniques were not the ones that Kong Shen sect had collected. Lu Ming had never seen them before. Clearly they were the private goods of Dragon Boat Mountain. Ha ha ha. Lu Ming laughed heartily. Now that he had the star core, he wanted to cultivate a few more kinds of Shin power. There were ready-made Shin techniques that came to him. As long as he cultivated these 2 divine techniques, his divine power would be even stronger. Lu Ming kept the 2 divine grade techniques and took out some storage rings. Lu Ming had obtained these storage rings from the geniuses of the Unique Devil Academy and the Immortal Sword sect. Lu Ming sorted out the storage rings. What made Lu Ming ecstatic was that he had obtained 2 more divine techniques. One of them was the multi-eyed divine technique that he had obtained from the 4-eyed heavenly court of the Unique Demon Academy. At the peak of cultivation, one could cultivate multi-eyed divine power. The divine power controlled by the 4-eyed void court was this divine grade divine power. What excited Lu Ming the most was the other one. He got it from Zhuobumu, the unparalleled genius of the Indestructible Sword sect. It was called the Indestructible Sword Technique. This divine technique was the most important technique of the Indestructible Sword sect. However, there were very few people who could cultivate it to its peak. This was because once cultivated to its peak, one could cultivate a divine grade divine power, the Indestructible Sword Force. For example, the divine son of the Indestructible Sword sect had cultivated this divine technique to the extreme and cultivated it into divine grade divine power. It was indestructible and its offensive power was shocking. As for Zhuobuju, he had only cultivated a sacred grade divine power and was far from cultivating a divine grade divine power. Lu Ming's heart was thumping. He had the heaven and earth thousand Tao scripture. He did not need to cultivate to the peak. It was enough to cultivate a wisp of Shin power. Immediately, Lu Ming decided to spend the rest of his time cultivating these 4 divine techniques. As for those king-grade divine techniques, Lu Ming was not interested in them at all. This was because it was very difficult to condense a star core with king-grade divine power. When Lu Ming entered the divine king realm, the king-grade divine power would not be of much use. Lu Ming planned to find an opportunity in the future to merge the 3 types of king-grade divine energy in his body with the divine grade divine energy or divine grade divine energy that had similar attributes. He'll cultivate the divine grade wondrous technique, the Indestructible Sword Technique, first. Lu Ming pondered and then took out the Indestructible Sword Technique to read and comprehend it in detail. The difficulty of cultivating a divine grade divine technique was naturally incomparable to that of a divine grade divine technique. Lu Ming spent a full year before he successfully cultivated the first stage. After cultivating the first stage, Lu Ming had condensed a wisp of inextinguishable sword force. To Lu Ming that was enough. After cultivating the first level, Lu Ming put down the Indestructible Sword Technique and went on to study another holy grade divine technique, the multi-eyed divine technique. Just like that, Lu Ming spent a few years to cultivate the 4 divine techniques to the first level and cultivated a wisp of divine power. This was only the beginning of his cultivation. Following that, Lu Ming focused on circulating the Universe Thousand Tao mantra to strengthen the 4 types of divine powers. It would take a long time to cultivate these 4 Shin powers to the same level as the other Shin powers. Next, Lu Ming entered a deep level of seclusion. And after the Qin Heaven starfield went through a period of turmoil, it also fell into peace. Time passed quickly. 200 years had passed. To the Qin Heaven starfield, 200 years was just a blink of an eye. To Lu Ming it was a great harvest. After 200 years, Lu Ming had finally cultivated 3 of the divine-grade divine powers to the point where they were as strong and condensed as the other divine powers. Only the inextinguishable sword force was more difficult to cultivate as it was a divine-grade divine power. He had not cultivated it to the point where it was as strong as the other divine powers, but the difference was not too big. He should be able to catch up in a few decades. In this way there were 10 divine power flowers in Lu Ming's dantian. They were extremely dazzling like 10 stars in the starry sky. And NBSP there were 2 divine-grade divine powers, 5 sacred-grade divine powers, and 3 king-grade divine powers. Although Lu Ming's current cultivation level was still at the first-tier celestial deity realm, his divine power was much stronger than it was 200 years ago. His combat strength had also improved by a large margin. Moreover, in the past 200 years, he had not been completely cultivating the Universe Thousand Tao scripture. He had taken time to study the divine dragon materialization technique, various divine skills, and the battle character formula. He had improved quite a bit in all aspects. In terms of magical skills, Lu Ming had successfully cultivated the 3rd move of the 3 apocalyptic strikes, Star Explosion. This move was known as the Supernova, and one could imagine how powerful it was. In addition, the 9 heavenly Kunpeng technique and the 9 layers of crimson gold armor had all reached the 7th layer. He had reached the 7th level of the 9 heavenly Kunpeng technique, which was the peak. However, the 9 heavenly Kunpeng technique was an incomplete speed-type divine skill. There must be other higher levels. Lu Ming planned to spend some time to look for them. There was also the battle character. Lu Ming had finally cultivated the quadruple combat strength to its peak and achieved a 100% success rate. Lu Ming had already started to comprehend the 5-fold increase in combat strength. However, it was too difficult. After many years of cultivation, Lu Ming still had no idea. In short, after 200 years, although Lu Ming's cultivation level did not increase, his combat strength had improved by a large margin. If Lu Ming continued to face Mo Jui, the divine son of the unique Devil Academy, he was confident that he could suppress him. At this moment, a figure with a curly beard floated over from outside the mountain. Qiu Yue. Lu Ming stood up with a smile and walked up to her. He held Qiu Yu's hand and sized her up. Then, his eyes lit up and he said in surprise, "Qiu Yue, you broke through to the heavenly god realm." The emissary of the Great Void Sacred Dynasty. Yes, I just broke through not long ago. Qiu Yu nodded, her face filled with joy. She had finally caught up to Lu Ming. Lu Ming was amazed. Ever since Qiu Yu awakened her 9-orifice Saint Heart, her cultivation speed was amazing. Even if he did not have any fortuitous encounters, his cultivation speed would still advance by leaps and bounds. Since 200 years ago, Lu Ming's authority in the Kongshen sect had increased. Almost no one would go against what he said. Therefore, Qiu Yu could freely enter and exit the various cultivation sanctuaries in the Kongshen sect. In addition, Lu Ming had given her a large number of resources to help her. Qiu Yu's cultivation level was improving at an alarming rate. Now, Qiu Yu had already broken through to the first-tier celestial god realm and was on par with Lu Ming. Qiu Yu had also cultivated the Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture to the highest level and successfully cultivated ruler divine power. Her battle power was also extremely strong. In all the major sects he would be a deity-level figure. Of course no one knew about this. Qiu Yue, take these divine techniques and cultivate them. Lu Ming passed the indestructible sword technique, multi-eyed divine technique, chilliness divine technique, and other divine techniques to Qiu Yu. With Qiu Yu's talent, it was only a matter of time before she cultivated many types of Shin power. Moreover, with the mystery of Qiu Yu's 9-orifice Saint Heart, her cultivation speed would not be slow even if she controlled many types of divine power. If it had been anyone else, even if they had the Universe Thousand Tao scripture to cultivate many Shin powers, his cultivation speed would be as slow as a snail. However, Lu Ming had the measure formula and Qiu Yu had a 9-orifice Saint Heart. They did not have such concerns. So many. Qiu Yu was also shocked to see so many divine techniques. Of course. Don't you know what kind of person your young master is? It's no big deal for him to obtain these divine techniques. He'll give you more in the future. Lu Ming started to boast. Qiu Yu knew it, young master is the best. Qiu Yu blinked her big eyes and kissed Lu Ming's lips. Then, she immediately retracted her hand. However, Lu Ming reached out and held Qiu Yu's slender waist, pulling her into his arms. You know how powerful young master is, right? I'll make it up to young master today. Lu Ming smiled evilly. Young master is up to no good again. Qiuyu smiled. Then I'll show you how bad I am. Lu Ming laughed out loud. He carried Qiuyu and entered a room. In the days that followed, Qiuyu cultivated various divine techniques under Lu Ming's guidance. Her progress was astonishing, and even Lu Ming felt ashamed of his inferiority. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. On this day, the senior statesman of Kongshen sect suddenly sent Lu Ming a message, saying that there was something important. Lu Ming rushed to the meeting hall and found Ouyang Qingxiang and the other holy sons there. When the sacred son of reflection and the rest saw Lu Ming, their faces turned pale and they were in awe. Greetings, holy son Lu Ming. The sacred son of reflection and the rest greeted Lu Ming politely. Now if Lu Ming said one, they would definitely not dare to say two. And? Lu Ming nodded casually and swept his gaze across the entire venue. In addition to the holy sons and holy virgins, the elders of the Kongshen sect, and many inner sect elders, almost all of them were present. Lu Ming. Holy son Lu Ming. The doyens and inner sect elders also greeted Lu Ming one after another. Everyone, why have you all gathered here today? Lu Ming asked. Lu Ming, we've received news not long ago that an emissary from the Great Void Holy Dynasty is coming to our Kongshen sect. Ouyang Qingxiang said. The Great Void Holy Dynasty. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly bloomed with a brilliant glow. Lu Ming had long known that the Great Void Holy Dynasty was a universal power that ruled a vast territory. It had countless star zones and was vast and boundless. The Qin Heaven Star region was a remote star region under the rule of the Great Void Holy Dynasty. Because of Jingye's matter, Lu Ming had to make a trip to the Great Void Holy Dynasty sooner or later. He did not expect that an emissary from the Great Void Holy Dynasty would suddenly arrive. Why did the emissary from the Great Void Holy Dynasty suddenly come to the Kongshen sect? Lu Ming asked, his mind spinning rapidly. Could it be that the people of the Great Void Sacred Dynasty knew of his relationship with Jianghu and had come for him? That's impossible. He didn't reveal anything about Jianghu. The people of the Great Void Sacred Dynasty shouldn't know about this. What was the reason? We do not know either. In the vast Great Void Holy Dynasty, the Qin Heaven Star region is located far away. The Great Void Holy Dynasty has always been indifferent and rarely sends their emissaries over. We do not know why they suddenly sent their emissaries over this time. Ouyang Qingxiang also frowned. The rest of the people also had a serious look on their faces. They did not know if the arrival of the Great Void Holy Dynasty's emissary was a blessing or a curse. Although the Kongshen sect was the overlord of the Qin Heaven Galaxy, they were like ants compared to the Great Void Holy Dynasty. It was like the difference between an ant and a divine dragon. In fact, they were not even comparable to an ant. Any random expert from the Great Void Holy Dynasty could destroy the Kongshen sect. Therefore they couldn't help but feel nervous. They are not from the royal family of the Great Void Holy Dynasty, but from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor. At this moment Wuxia spoke. 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion? Some people including Lu Ming looked puzzled. You guys might not be clear about the division of power in the Great Void Holy Dynasty. Let me explain it to you, Wuxia said. After sorting out her thoughts she continued, the Great Void Holy Dynasty uses a enfeoffment system. Other than the royal family of the Great Void Holy Dynasty occupying the core and best territories, there are 27 heavenly kings. These 27 heavenly kings are all top experts of the Great Void Holy Dynasty and have made great contributions to the Great Void Holy Dynasty. The 27 heavenly kings have established 27 heavenly king manors, each ruling a territory like a country within a country. Their strength is also very shocking. And our Qin Heaven Starfield is under the rule of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor, Wuxia explained. I see. Lu Ming nodded. He had a general understanding of the power structure of the Great Void Holy Dynasty. The 27 heavenly kings were the lords of a region in the Great Void Holy Dynasty. However, everyone's expression did not relax. To them, regardless of whether it was the royal family of the Great Void Holy Dynasty or the 9 Absolute Heavenly King House, they were all giants that they could not fight against. There was no difference. The envoy from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion is about to arrive. Let's go out and welcome him, Wuxia said. Immediately, all the higher-ups of the Kongshen sect flew out into outer space. They stood in space and waited quietly. Roar. About half an hour later, a dragon's roar could be heard from afar. Then everyone saw 9 giant divine dragons pulling a chariot toward them. The 9 divine dragons were scarlet all over and were 10,000 meters long. Their auras were extremely shocking, and each of them gave off a terrifying pressure. A peak heavenly god divine dragon is pulling the carriage. What a big move. An elder sighed. Chapter 2921 Shocking news to have 9 peak heavenly god divine dragons pulling a carriage? This was indeed an astonishing feat. Everyone knew that the envoy from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion had arrived. Roar. The speed of the 9 dragons pulling the carriage was astonishing. Very soon, it arrived in front of Lu Ming and the rest and stopped in the starry sky. Everyone saw more than 10 figures on the chariot. Among them there were 4 burly middle-aged men. They were burly and emitted a terrifying aura. A god king. He was definitely a god king. Moreover, he was definitely an expert among the god kings. The other 6 people were all young people, both male and female. Each of them had a proud expression on their faces as if they thought highly of themselves. Kongxian sect's Zongzi Ouyang Qingxiang is leading the entire Kongxian sect to welcome the emissaries of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Ouyang Xiangxiang stepped forward and clasped her hands. Welcome, envoy of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Sect leader. The other people from Kongxian sect also cupped their fists and bowed respectfully. Of course, Lu Ming was an exception. He just casually cupped his fists and sized up the people from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion with a curious gaze. Zongzi? Where's your sect leader? Why aren't you here to welcome me? A young man with 3 red scales on his forehead flew down from the chariot and spoke in a cold and arrogant voice. However, when his gaze fell on Ouyang Qingxiang, a look of surprise flashed across his face. I don't dare to hide it from you, envoy. My sect master died hundreds of years ago, and am temporarily taking over the sect. Ouyang Xiangxiang replied. Oh, the young man with the scale between his brows replied, but he did not comment. May I ask, emissaries, why have you suddenly come to my Kongxian sect? Ouyang Xiangxiang nervously asked. I was about to tell you about this. Let me tell you, the treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, the 9 absolute god crystal, has been stolen. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said. Ouyang Qingxiang and the others looked at each other. What did the theft of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion's treasure have to do with them? After investigation, the person who stole the treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, the 9 absolute god crystal, is from your Qin heaven starfield. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows suddenly said in a cold voice. What? Ouyang Xiangxiang, Wuxia, and the others' expressions changed drastically. The person who stole the treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion was actually from the Qin heaven starfield. Could it be that the powerhouses of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion suspected that their Kongxian sect had done it? The doyens and inner court elders of Kongxian sect broke out in a cold sweat when they thought of this. Great emissaries, are you suspecting that it was done by my Kongxian sect? This is impossible. With the number of powerhouses in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, how could anyone from my Kongxian sect enter and steal the treasure? Wuxia hurriedly said. You mean to say that the 9 absolute heavenly king manor's defense can't make it? The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said with a dark expression. No, that's not what I meant. Great messenger. You've misunderstood. Wuxia repeatedly bowed, his face covered in cold sweat. He was a second sky of king god realm expert, but he had to bow and bend his knees in front of a junior. The other party's background was too great. Humph, it's good that you didn't. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows snorted coldly and said, This time, any of the forces in your Qin heaven starfield are suspects. You have to investigate them all. No one is an exception. How does the great messenger want to investigate? Ouyang Qingxiang asked. It's very simple. Gather everyone in your Kongxian sect and take out your storage rings for us to inspect. Also, release your Mind Sea and Dantian. We also want to inspect your Mind Sea and Dantian to prevent you from placing your treasures in your Mind Sea and Dantian. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said. What? I want to check the storage ring. There's also the Sea of Consciousness and Dantian. Many people cried out in alarm, their expressions unsightly. If that was the case, they would have no more secrets to keep. The storage ring, Sea of Consciousness, and Dantian were the greatest secrets of a cultivator. It was impossible to let others see them. Which person didn't have any secrets? Yet the other party wanted to check everyone's storage rings, consciousness, and Dantian. How overbearing. What's wrong? Do you have any objections? The young man with the scale between his eyebrows asked coldly. The rest of the people stepped down from the chariot and cast hostile looks at Lu Ming and the rest. It would be a wonder if he didn't have any opinions. Everyone roared in their hearts. Emissaries, We really didn't steal the treasures of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Even if you give us 100 guts, we wouldn't dare to. That's right. Moreover, our cultivation is low, so we can't steal the treasures of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion at all. I hope that all envoys can understand. The elders of Kongxian sect spoke one after another. Nonsense, I don't care about you. My mission here is to find the 9 absolute God crystal. Don't talk nonsense with me, just follow my orders. The young man with the scale between his brows shouted coldly, as if he was scolding a group of slaves. He was direct and overbearing, not showing any mercy. Wuxia and a few other God King experts had ugly expressions. The other party was just a young man. Furthermore, they could see that his cultivation was only at the 6th level heavenly deity realm. If he dared to speak to them like this in any other place, he would have been slapped to death by them long ago. However, the other party was an envoy from the 9 absolute heavenly king manor, and there were terrifying experts following him. They did not dare to do so at all. However, they were not willing to take out their storage rings or open their spiritual Si Dantian for the other party to check. For a time, the atmosphere was a little heavy. What's wrong? You're still not willing? Do you want to annihilate the Kongxian sect? The young man with the scale between his eyebrows shouted angrily. What big words! A voice was heard. Lu Ming could not bear it anymore and stepped out. From the very beginning, the other party had been acting high and mighty, looking down on them. It was as if Lu Ming and the rest had to do as he said. Lu Ming was really unhappy. As soon as Lu Ming walked out, the young man with the scale between his eyebrows stared at Lu Ming with a cold glint in his eyes. Kid, what did you say? The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said coldly. Didn't you hear what I said? Your ears aren't good? Lu Ming said with a cold face. Once his temper flared up, he would not care who the other party was. The moment you come here, you want us to give you our storage rings and our Sea of Consciousness Dantian for you to investigate? Just based on your words? Then let me check your Dantian and Sea of Consciousness first. Lu Ming continued. Kid, you still want to check my Dantian Sea of Consciousness? Who do you think you are? You're just a lowly ant and a piece of trash. How can you compare yourself to me? You'll do whatever I tell you to do, understand? Trash. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows shouted loudly, as if he had Lu Ming in the palm of his hand. Hee, you're making yourself sound noble. In my opinion, everyone's the same. There's no difference between noble and lowly. If you want to investigate us, why can't we investigate you? Lu Ming sneered. Kid, you're bringing trouble to your Kongxian sect, do you understand? The young man with the scale between his brows had a cold expression as he threatened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2922 Irresistible Power. You don't need to threaten me. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Let me tell you, my Kongxian sect did not steal the treasures of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. It is impossible for you to search our Dantian Sea of Consciousness. All cultivators know that the Dantian Sea of Consciousness is the most important secret. If you want to search our Dantian Sea of Consciousness, you might as well kill us directly. Lu Ming said loudly. There were many secrets in his Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. The Heaven and Earth Thousand Dao scripture cultivated many types of Shin power. There was also the battle formula and the quantity formula. If any of them were exposed, he would die without a burial ground. How could he let the other party search? If you are really suspicious, we can swear on our life source to confirm that we did not steal the treasures of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. In the end, Lu Ming still made a concession. After all, he had to consider the entire Kongxian sect. Swear on the source of life? I don't trust you. The 9 absolute heavenly king mansion's treasure is so precious, you can sacrifice a few lives, it's completely worth it. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said coldly. If one were to make an oath with their life source, the oath wouldn't be broken immediately. Instead, they might die from chi deviation in their later cultivation. The other party's meaning was very obvious. Even if someone from Kongxian sect really stole the treasure of 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, they could also swear on their life source. At that time at most, those who stole the treasure would break their oath and die. But to the treasures of the 9 absolute heavenly king manor, it was worth it. The expressions of Wuxia and the others were a little unsightly. It was obvious that the other party would only be at ease if they searched their Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Please go back. It's impossible for you to search our Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. Lu Ming's expression turned cold. He had already made a concession, but the other party was still pressing him, so he was too lazy to talk nonsense. Good, very good. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. After all, I can still check your dantian and see of consciousness after killing you. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows laughed hideously. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, a terrifying aura burst out from the four burly men. A vast pressure covered the sky and the earth, shrouding the entire planet. What's going on? What a terrifying aura. A terrifying expert has descended. It's dangerous. The mountain gate of Kongshen sect was in chaos. Many people felt the aura and were shocked to death. Some people who were cultivating were suppressed by the aura. Their bodies trembled and they spat out blood. Third level of the God King realm. They're all third-level God Kings. Wuxia cried out in shock. The other Divine King elders were also shocked and their faces changed. These four burly men were all third-level God King realm experts. In the Xinjiang Star region, they were the deans of the Yimo Academy and the sect master of the Indestructible Sword sect. They were definitely overlord-level experts. However, 4 of them had come all of a sudden. Lu Ming's expression changed. The 9 absolute Heavenly King manner was indeed terrifying. They could even casually send out a third-level God King. Moreover, it seemed like their status wasn't very high. It seems that I can only let the Bone Devil come. Lu Ming's mind was racing. In this situation he could only let the Bone Demon attack and force the other party to retreat. Then he would bring the entire Kongshen sect to find a place to hide. Other than this method there was no other way. A bunch of country bumpkins who haven't seen the world. A few third-level Divine Kings scared you to this extent. Seeing Lu Ming and the rest's expressions change drastically, as if they had been frightened, the young man with the scale between his eyebrows felt pleased and could not help but mock them. Now I'll give you one last chance. Open your storage rings and your dantian and sea of consciousness for us to check, and we can spare your lives. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows continued to speak coldly. The expressions of Wuxia and the other Kongshen sect elders and inner sect elders kept changing. The other side had 4 third-level Divine King realm experts. Once they made a move they would die without a doubt. Therefore they were already hesitating. Compared to being killed, having their dantian and sea of consciousness checked was not unacceptable. However, Lu Ming's attitude was very firm and they were hesitant. Lu Ming had Yulong behind him. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't agree after 3 breaths you'll die. 3. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows said coldly. The expressions of Wuxia and the others changed drastically. They looked at Lu Ming, then at the young man with the scale between his eyebrows. They were extremely anxious. 2. And NBSP kill. The scale youth spoke once more, his eyes radiating cold killing intent. Qin Wushang, you're really impressive. You came to the Qin Heaven Star region to act like a tyrant, At this moment, a mocking voice came from afar. Who is it? The young man with the scale between his brows shouted coldly as he looked in the direction of the voice. There was a sword light flying toward them at an astonishing speed. In the next moment, the sword light receded, and a combat sword appeared in the starry sky. The battle sword was 10,000 meters long and incomparably huge. 5 figures stood on the battle sword. A young man and 4 burly men. Wu Zifeng, Lu Ming, Ouyang Qingxiang and the rest were a little shocked. The young man on the sword was really Wu Zifeng. Miss Qingxiang, Lu Ming, Grandpa Yu. Wu Zifeng stepped down and greeted Lu Ming and Ouyang Qingxiang. Finally he bowed to Wuxia. Zifeng, you're here. Good. Seeing Wu Zifeng, Wuxia was overjoyed. He said good 3 times in a row, and his whole body seemed to be completely relaxed. Wu Zifeng, it's you. The young man with the scale between his brows could not help but exclaim when he saw Wu Zifeng as if he knew him. Qin Wushang, now get lost. Wu Zifeng shouted indifferently. The young man with the scale between his eyebrows was Qin Wushang. Wu Zifeng, I'm here to investigate the case of the stolen treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. Do you want to interfere? Qin Wushang said coldly. Don't use the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion to pressure me. You can lie to others but you can't lie to me. You're just an ordinary disciple of the Qin family. You can't represent the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. Don't use a chicken feather as a token of authority and show off in front of us. Wu Zifeng sneered. At the same time, the 4 burly men behind Wu Zifeng also erupted with a shocking aura. They were all third-level Divine Kings. It seems like Wu Zifeng is also from the Great Void Holy Dynasty. Lu Ming's heart stirred. In the past, he already knew that Wu Zifeng was not from the Qin Heaven Starfield. It turned out that he was from the Great Void Sacred Dynasty, and his background was more powerful than he had imagined. Even Qin Wushang seemed to be quite afraid of Wu Zifeng. Qin Wushang's expression was unsightly. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion had a vast territory. Under it, there were naturally many powerful forces. These forces all existed in the form of clans. Many large and ancient clans helped the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion rule the vast territory. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manors Paragon. These ancient aristocratic families had been passed down for countless years. Their foundations were deep and their strength was unfathomable. They were far from what the Qin Heaven Starfield could compare to. The Wu family and the Qin family were both aristocratic families like this. However, Qin Wushang's status in the Qin clan was not high. Just as Wu Zifeng had said, he did not mix well in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. He only came to the Qin Heaven Starfield to show off his power and did not represent the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. Wu Zifeng, it seems that you have to intervene. This is about the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal. If something goes wrong, you won't be able to bear the responsibility. Not to mention you, even your Wu family can't bear the responsibility. Qin Wushang said coldly. You don't have to worry about that. I can also guarantee that the Kongshen sect is not the one who stole the 9 Absolute Divine Crystal. You can get lost now. Wu Zifeng said. Good, very good. I can leave, but... Qin Wushang gritted his teeth. Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly turned to look at Lu Ming. Then, his body trembled and he rushed toward Lu Ming like a stream of light, sending a palm toward Lu Ming. The force whistled and the palm force pressed down on Lu Ming with the force of mountains and seas. 6th level heavenly deity, sacred grade divine power. In an instant, Lu Ming had determined Qin Wushang's strength. At the critical moment, Lu Ming did not have time to think. He could only channel his divine energy and wave his palm to resist. However, Lu Ming did not expect that Qin Wushang would suddenly attack him. In a hurry, he could only use 30% of his divine power. Boom. The two palms collided. Lu Ming's body shook violently and he retreated 1,000 meters before he could stabilize himself. Qin Wushang, what are you doing? Wu Zifeng shouted angrily. What are you doing? This lowly ant doesn't know his place and dares to talk back to me. I won't pursue the matter with the Kongshen sect today, but this person must die. Qin Wushang shouted. His face was ferocious and filled with strong killing intent. With that, Qin Wushang's aura became even stronger. He stepped forward and waves of powerful pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. This person isn't weaker than the Supreme Universe. Lu Ming had a thought in his mind. Qin Wushang's cultivation base was at the 6th level of the Heavenly God realm. The divine power he controlled was of the divine grade. He was a genius on the same level as the Supreme Universe. However, from Wu Zifeng's tone, Qin Wushang seemed to be doing very well in the Qin family. If such a genius was only average in the Qin clan, then how many geniuses did the Qin clan have? Or rather, how many geniuses were there in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, or even the entire Great Void Holy Dynasty? For a moment, Lu Ming's imagination was running wild. He even had some desire in his heart. Currently, among the younger generation in the Qin Heaven Star Zone, Lu Ming was almost standing at the peak. As long as Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji and Sangyen Pejuan had not broken through, he was confident that he could defeat them. Thus, he yearned for stronger opponents that could give him pressure and make him stronger. As long as I'm here, don't even think about touching a single hair on Lu Ming. Wu Zifeng said coldly and waved his hand. Bang. Behind Wu Zifeng, a burly man stepped out. His violent aura burst forth and blocked Qin Wushang's path. However, immediately after, a burly man behind Qin Wushang also stepped out. His aura erupted like a volcano and broke through the aura of the Wu family's experts. Qin Wushang regained his freedom. Let the younger generation solve their own problems. We, the older generation, just watch. The big man from the Qin family said coldly as he stared at the experts from the Wu family. The experts from both sides were in a confrontation. However, the people that both sides brought were about the same and their cultivation levels were about the same. It just so happened that they were in a stalemate and could not interfere in the matter between Lu Ming and Qin Wushang. Ah, that's right. The matters of the younger generation should be settled by themselves. I want to see what gave a lowly ant from the Qin Heaven Star system the courage to speak to me like that. Qin Wushang laughed out loud. He raised his 6th-level celestial deity Cultivation to the peak and stomped towards Lu Ming with a face full of confidence. He could tell that Lu Ming was only a first-tier celestial deity. In his opinion, a first-tier celestial deity would not be able to withstand a single blow. "Qin Wushang, you dare?" Wu Zifeng shouted. However, his cultivation was not as good as Qin Wushang's, so he could not wipe his hands. "Brother Wu, since he wants to fight, I'll fight with him. You don't need to interfere." Lu Ming raised his hand and stopped Wu Zifeng. "Hee kid, you have some guts. However, you want to fight me with trash like you? Kneel down." Qin Wushang snorted and raised his hand again. A huge palm print formed and pressed down on Lu Ming, trying to force him to his knees. "You're the one who should kneel." Lu Ming's indifferent voice was heard. At the same time, the 10 divine flames in his body burned fiercely. The 10 types of divine powers circulated wildly and gathered together, rushing toward Lu Ming's arm. Whoosh! Lu Ming pointed his finger and a spear's gleam shot up into the sky, piercing through the 9 heavens and the starry sky. It was brighter than a shooting star. Bang! The spear radiance and Qin Wushang's palm print collided with a violent boom. Qin Wushang's palm print exploded and disappeared. What? Qin Wushang was shocked. Why did Lu Ming's aura suddenly increase by a few times? The attack that he unleashed was also extremely shocking, crushing his attack in one fell swoop. The people who came with Qin Wushang could not help but widen their eyes, their faces filled with shock. So powerful. Lu Ming is really getting more and more powerful. Wu Zifeng was also very surprised. With just this bit of strength, I still thought how strong the geniuses of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion were? Lu Ming's faint voice was filled with mockery. "Kid, you're quite strong. However, I didn't use my full strength just now. Now you'll regret it." 7 Injury Divine Fist. Qin Wushang shouted and changed his attack. He clenched his fists and a strange light emanated from his body and gathered on his fists. Boom! Boom! Qin Wushang threw 2 punches in a row. The 2 fist prints were like 2 meteors, blasting toward Lu Ming. It was fast, but its power was shocking. This level of combat strength was already not below the full strength of the Supreme Universe. In the Qin Heaven Star region, he was definitely considered a top genius. However, with Lu Ming's current abilities, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with an opponent like Supreme Universe. Lu Ming didn't even need to use his ancient god body and the battle character formula to multiply his combat power. It was enough to rely on the 10 types of divine power and various divine skills and secret techniques. Divine Dragon Phenomenon. Lu Ming also threw a punch. A dragon's roar reverberated through the firmament. A huge 9-clawed divine dragon appeared and pounced at Qin Wushang with a furious roar. Lu Ming then threw another punch and another 9-clawed divine dragon appeared. The 2 9-clawed divine dragons twisted their bodies and pounced forward. The 9 dragon claws on their abdomens struck out in succession and let out terrifying howls as if sharp swords were piercing through the air. In reality, that was indeed the case. Now that Lu Ming had cultivated the indestructible sword technique and controlled the indestructible sword force, his divine power contained a terrifying sword force attack. The inextinguishable sword force acted on the 9-clawed divine dragon's sharp claws, making them as sharp as a sword. It elevated Lu Ming's attack power to another level. Chapter 2924 Forceful Suppression. Boom! Boom! The 9-clawed divine dragon's sharp claws continued to claw at the fist print, causing a series of rumbles. The fist print trembled continuously and cracks appeared on it. How is that possible? How is that possible? Qin Wushang howled in his heart. He was in disbelief. He had already used all his strength and used his ultimate move, but now he was still at a disadvantage. This was simply unbelievable. He was a 6th-level celestial deity and had even mastered the divine energy while Lu Ming was only a 1st-level celestial deity. An existence that he had regarded as an ant had actually exploded with such shocking battle prowess. It was a huge blow to his self-esteem. I can't lose. How can I lose to an ant from the Qin Heaven Star system? 7 Injury Divine Fist. 7 Injury Stacking. Qin Wushang roared in his heart. His face turned pale and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. After spurting out blood, Qin Wushang's face turned pale. However, the force of his fist had become even stronger. Boom! 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 Qin Wushang continued to swing his fists. Waves of terrifying fist force burst out continuously and merged with the fist seals from before, causing the power of his fist seals to skyrocket and emit a dazzling radiance. Using his own injuries to increase his attack power, what a brainless secret technique, hee hee. Lu Ming sneered and then took a step forward. Divine dragon phenomenon, come out. Lu Ming shouted. Brr, 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 brr. The dragon's roars continued to ring out in the sky. 4 more dragons' roars were heard in a row. Then 4 9-clawed divine dragons emerged above Lu Ming's head. In addition to the previous one, there were a total of 6 9-clawed divine dragons. After more than 200 years of cultivation, Lu Ming had already cultivated 6 divine dragon images. The true power of the divine dragon materialization art was gradually revealed. The 6 9-clawed divine dragons pounced at Qin Wuxiang together. The vast dragon might cause the 9 divine dragons pulling the Qin family's carriage to show fear and retreat continuously. This was a suppression due to the difference in levels. In the divine dragon clan, the 9-clawed divine dragon was undoubtedly superior. The power of the 6 9-clawed divine dragons was amazing. Moreover, Lu Ming had mastered the battle formula. Even if he did not trigger the multifold increase in combat power, he could be enhanced by the battle formula when he cast any divine skill or secret skill. The power would be stronger. The attacks from both sides met in the void and an astonishing collision broke out. Then Qin Wuxiang's fist seal continued to explode and shatter. Qin Wuxiang spat out a large mouthful of blood as he retreated. Lu Ming took a step forward. The 6 9-clawed divine dragons roared and chased after him. Hurry, hurry and help me. Let's suppress this ant together, he shouted. Qin Wuxiang roared. Even now he still felt that he was superior to Lu Ming. This was a common problem for those who were born in great forces. It was just like how the Qin Heaven Star region's geniuses would act the same when facing the people of the chaotic astral river. They would look down on the people of the chaotic astral river, feeling that they were high and mighty, with a noble status. As for those who had walked up from the bottom, they would not have such a mentality. Kill? There were 5 other young men who came with Qin Wuxiang. At this moment, all of them were charging towards Lu Ming. The moment the 5 young men attacked, the people from the Kongxian sect were shocked. This was because these 5 young men were all terrifying heaven's favorites. They had all mastered the divine power. 3 of them were at the 6th level and 2 of them were at the 5th level. The strength of those 3 6th-level heavenly deities was not the slightest bit weaker than Qin Wuxiang's. The 6 experts joined forces and launched their own ultimate moves, charging toward Lu Ming. Die brat. 7 injury divine fist. Qin Wuxiang roared. He had been injured by Lu Ming, but the power of his fist force had become stronger. What he cultivated was a secret skill unique to the Qin family. The more injured he was, the more powerful his fist force would be. However, in the face of such an attack, Lu Ming's expression remained calm. Battle formula, double the combat power. With a single thought, Lu Ming activated the double combat strength of the battle character formula. A powerful force burst out from his body and filled his entire body. The 6 9-clawed divine dragons let out a long roar. As their bodies twisted, they swelled up rapidly. Their bodies grew larger and their power became stronger. The 6 9-clawed divine dragons pounced toward the 6 young men. A spear as huge as a mountain materialized in Lu Ming's palm and he thrust it at one of the youths. The young man was fighting against a 9-clawed divine dragon Dharma Laksana with all his strength. He could not resist the attack of the long spear at all. He was pressed down by the spear light and flew out like a broken sandbag. He was severely injured and his breath was weak. Then Lu Ming fired another shot at another young man. After Lu Ming had activated the double combat strength, trash like Qin Wuxiang was no longer Lu Ming's match. He was easily crushed. Bang, bang. Lu Ming attacked continuously with his spear. Each spear attack could suppress one person. In an instant, the 5 young men who attacked from behind were all sent flying by Lu Ming and were severely injured. In the end, Lu Ming's cold gaze swept towards Qin Wuxiang. Ah! Qin Wuxiang was so frightened that he screamed, turned around and ran. You haven't even knelt down and you want to leave? Lu Ming said coldly. He controlled the 6 divine dragons and surrounded Qin Wuxiang. Brat, stop. At this moment, a burly man from the Qin family shouted and stepped forward. He wanted to deal with Lu Ming personally. However, a burly man from the Wu family stopped him. Let the younger generation settle their own matters. It's better for the older generation not to interfere. The burly man from the Wu family sneered. This sentence was said by the Qin family's burly man before, but now the Wu family's burly man returned it to him without moving. You, the burly man from the Qin family was furious. He then glared at Lu Ming and said coldly, Qin Wuxiang is a disciple of the Qin clan. Although he is not a core disciple, you want him to kneel? You have to think carefully whether you are worthy of it. His voice was cold and threatening. Even if Qin Wuxiang was not a core member of the Qin clan, he was still a member of the clan. He represented the face of the clan. If Qin Wuxiang were to kneel, it would be equivalent to slapping the face of the clan. I've never heard of the Qin family. I only know that if you want someone to pay, you have to be prepared to pay. If he wants me to kneel, then you have to be prepared to kneel. Kneel. Lu Ming shouted coldly, not giving him any face at all. The 6 9-clawed divine dragons, huge claws pressed down continuously. How could Qin Wuxiang withstand it? He barely managed to withstand a few moves before he was controlled by the 9-clawed divine dragon phenomenon. With a plop, he knelt in the air before Lu Ming. Qin Wuxiang let out an angry roar that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. This was truly a great humiliation. In the Qin family, he was not a core disciple to begin with, so he was not doing very well. If this matter were to spread to the Qin family, he would probably do even worse and become the Qin family's disgrace. At this moment he even wanted to die. The other 5 young men of the Qin family were pale with fear. They were glad that they weren't the first ones to step out. Otherwise they wouldn't have a good ending. Chapter 2925 Starfield Crisis, Get Lost. With a wave of his hand, a surge of energy burst forth and threw Qin Wuxiang away. One of the Qin clan's burly men reached out to catch Qin Wuxiang. His face was extremely cold. Kid, you have guts. I hope you don't set foot in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion for the rest of your life. Otherwise you will regret what you have done today. Go. The Qin clan's burly man left these words and flew onto the chariot with Qin Wuxiang and the others. Then the 9 divine dragons roared and pulled the chariot away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Oh. Wuxia and the others let out a long breath, but their hearts were still very heavy, as if a huge stone was pressing down on them. Although the Kangxian sect was temporarily safe, they knew that this matter was far from over. The treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion had been stolen. This was definitely a huge matter. They immediately welcomed Wu Zifeng and the Wu family into the Kangxian sect. After some understanding, Lu Ming knew that when Wuxia was young and adventuring, he had inadvertently befriended Wu Zifeng's grandfather. The two of them had gone on adventures together and had a life-and-death friendship. Later on, Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng were betrothed even before they were born. That was why Wu Zifeng often went to the Kangxian sect, and Yu Linglong often went to the Wu family to play. Zifeng, what's going on? In a large hall, Wuxia asked Wu Zifeng. I'm not too sure about the details. I only know that a few months ago the treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, the 9 absolute god crystal, was stolen. The thief was very smart and no one found out. However, the other party still left behind traces. The experts of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion came to a conclusion based on those traces. The person who stole the treasure is very likely to come from the Qin Heaven Star system. Wu Zifeng said. How is this possible? The defense of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion is so well hidden and there are so many experts. In the Qin Heaven Star field, who could steal the treasure from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion? Wuxia and the others could not believe it. In the Qin Heaven Star region, a 3rd-level god king like the demoness of the unique demon academy Xingmo was already considered a peak expert. However, such a cultivation base was far from enough in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Not to mention the 3rd level of the god king realm, even the 4th or 5th level of the god king realm was far from enough. Who in the Qin Heaven Starfield had the ability to steal the precious treasure of the 9 absolute heavenly king manor? I'm also very confused about this. However, since the clues point here, the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion will definitely not give up. This time, not only did the Qin family send people, but the other aristocratic families also sent people over. Wu Zifeng said. Everyone's expression became even more serious. This matter was not simple at all. The crowd chatted for a while more before dispersing. As expected, a few days later, news after news spread in the Qin Heaven Star region. In the 9 absolute heavenly king manor, people from all the major families had come. Not only had Kangxian sect been visited, but all the major forces in the Qin Heaven Starfield had also been visited. For example, the 3 overlord forces, the Ice Soul clan and the Scarlet Flame clan. The people from the 9 absolute heavenly king manor were domineering. No matter which power they were from, they wanted to check their storage rings and Dantian Sea of Consciousness. The other powers were not like the Kangxian sect, who had the help of the Wu family. When faced with the 9 absolute heavenly king manor, all the other powers were helpless and could only obediently accept it. Their storage rings and Dantian Sea of Consciousness were checked. Even the Red Flame clan and the Ice Soul clan were no exception. But the result was that nothing was found. There was not a single clue about the 9 Absolute God Crystal. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor's people were furious. They gave the Qin Heaven Star Field 10 years. After 10 years, if they still didn't hand over the 9 Absolute Divine Crystals, they would send an army over and trample the Qin Heaven Star Field. For a time, the people of the Qin Heaven Star Field were in a state of panic, and everyone was in danger. Who stole the treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor? Why isn't he handing it over? Is he trying to kill everyone? Which goddamned bastard harmed the entire star field for his own selfish reasons? He's going to die a horrible death. Many people cursed. In the Qin Heaven Star region, a storm was brewing, but there was nothing. Not long after, another piece of news spread throughout the Qin Heaven Star Field. During this period of time, the paragons of the various major forces of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor had entered the Qin Heaven Star Field one after another. There were even geniuses who set up an arena on Myriad Spirit Planet to challenge the geniuses of the Qin Heaven Starfield. The result was naturally that the Qin Heaven Starfield's geniuses were crushed and didn't obtain a single victory. An ant is an ant, truly incompetent. What heaven's favorites? They're all trash. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor's paragon was incomparably powerful, depreciating the Qin Tian Starfield's paragon to be worthless. Some people were furious and went to challenge the geniuses of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. However, the result was already set in stone. No one would win. This made the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion even more arrogant. If the younger generation of the Qin Heaven Starfield can defeat us, we can extend the time limit to 100 years, 1,000 years, or even more. In the end, some of the geniuses from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion said. This moved the hearts of the experts from the various major factions of the Qin Heaven Starfield. If they could really extend their time, they might have a chance to find the thief and avoid being killed. At once, all the top talents from all the forces were on their way to Planet Thousand Spirits. The divine sons of the 3 Overlord forces, as well as the top talents of the Ice Soul clan and the Scarlet Flame clan, all went to Planet Thousand Spirits. Of course, experts from all the major forces also secretly went to Planet Thousand Spirits. For a time, Myriad Spirit Star, the largest trading planet in the Qin Heaven Star system, became extremely lively. Lu Ming, Qiu Yu, Ouyang Xiangxiang, Yu Linglong, Wu Zifeng, and the others had also arrived on planet Myriad Spirit. The arena set up by the paragons of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion is in the central square. Let's go and take a look, Lu Ming said. Not long after they arrived at the central square. There was a huge empty space in the central square. In the middle of the empty space there was a huge fighting ring. During this period of time, this area was filled with people. On one side of the fighting ring there was a row of seats. A group of young men and women sat on the seats. These young men and women all had haughty expressions as they looked at the crowd in all directions with faint disdain in their eyes. They were all heaven's favorites from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. There are quite a lot of people here. Unfortunately, they're all trash. Not a single one of them is decent. A golden-robed young man's calm voice reverberated throughout the entire area. That's right, they're too useless. No matter what, this is still a starfield and they're just a few cats and dogs? This is really disappointing. Another young man said in disdain. In the surroundings, when the people of the Qin Heaven Starfield heard this, they were all furious. The true geniuses of my Qin Heaven Starfield haven't arrived yet. Don't be arrogant. Someone couldn't help but ask. Oh, there were real geniuses? You didn't brag about it, did you? Ah. The golden-robed young man laughed with disdain. Who's bragging? I believe those heaven's favorites will be here soon. At that time they might be able to fight with you. That person from the Qin Heaven Starfield said. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2925 Starfield Crisis, Get Lost. With a wave of his hand, a surge of energy burst forth and threw Qin Wushang away. One of the Qin clan's burly men reached out to catch Qin Wushang. His face was extremely cold. Kid, you have guts. I hope you don't set foot in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion for the rest of your life. Otherwise you will regret what you have done today. Go. The Qin clan's burly man left these words and flew onto the chariot with Qin Wushang and the others. Then the 9 divine dragons roared and pulled the chariot away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Oh. Wuxia and the others let out a long breath, but their hearts were still very heavy, as if a huge stone was pressing down on them. Although the Kangxian sect was temporarily safe, they knew that this matter was far from over. The treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion had been stolen. This was definitely a huge matter. They immediately welcomed Wu Zifeng and the Wu family into the Kangxian sect. After some understanding, Lu Ming knew that when Wuxia was young and adventuring, he had inadvertently befriended Wu Zifeng's grandfather. The two of them had gone on adventures together and had a life-and-death friendship. Later on, Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng were betrothed even before they were born. That was why Wu Zifeng often went to the Kangxian sect, and Yu Linglong often went to the Wu family to play. "Zifeng, what's going on?" In a large hall, Wuxia asked Wu Zifeng. "I'm not too sure about the details. I only know that a few months ago the treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion, the 9 Absolute God Crystal, was stolen. The thief was very smart and no one found out. However, the other party still left behind traces. The experts of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion came to a conclusion based on those traces. The person who stole the treasure is very likely to come from the Qin Heaven Star system." Wu Zifeng said. "How is this possible? The defense of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion is so well hidden and there are so many experts. In the Qin Heaven Star field, who could steal the treasure from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion?" Wuxia and the others could not believe it. In the Qin Heaven Star region, a third-level God King like the demoness of the unique demon academy, Xingmo, was already considered a peak expert. However, such a cultivation base was far from enough in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion. Not to mention the third level of the God King realm, even the fourth or fifth level of the God King realm was far from enough. Who in the Qin Heaven Starfield had the ability to steal the precious treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor? I'm also very confused about this. However, since the clues point here, the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion will definitely not give up. This time, not only did the Qin family send people, but the other aristocratic families also sent people over. Wu Zifeng said. Everyone's expression became even more serious. This matter was not simple at all. The crowd chatted for a while more before dispersing. As expected, a few days later, news after news spread in the Qin Heaven Star region. In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor, people from all the major families had come. Not only had Kangxian sect been visited, but all the major forces in the Qin Heaven Starfield had also been visited. For example, the 3 overlord forces, the Ice Soul clan and the Scarlet Flame clan. The people from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor were domineering. No matter which power they were from, they wanted to check their storage rings and Dantian Sea of Consciousness. The other powers were not like the Kangxian sect, who had the help of the Wu family. When faced with the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor, all the other powers were helpless and could only obediently accept it. Their storage rings and Dantian Sea of Consciousness were checked. Even the Red Flame clan and the Ice Soul clan were no exception. But the result was that nothing was found. There was not a single clue about the 9 Absolute God Crystal. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor's people were furious. They gave the Qin Heaven Star field 10 years. After 10 years, if they still didn't hand over the 9 Absolute Divine Crystals, they would send an army over and trample the Qin Heaven Star field. For a time, the people of the Qin Heaven Star field were in a state of panic, and everyone was in danger. Who stole the treasure of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor? Why isn't he handing it over? Is he trying to kill everyone? Which goddamned bastard harmed the entire star field for his own selfish reasons? He's going to die a horrible death. Many people cursed. In the Qin Heaven Star region, a storm was brewing, but there was nothing. Not long after, another piece of news spread throughout the Qin Heaven Starfield. During this period of time, the paragons of the various major forces of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor had entered the Qin Heaven Starfield one after another. There were even geniuses who set up an arena on Myriad Spirit Planet to challenge the geniuses of the Qin Heaven Starfield. The result was naturally that the Qin Heaven Starfield's geniuses were crushed and didn't obtain a single victory. An ant is an ant, truly incompetent. What heaven's favorites? They're all trash. The 9 Absolute Heavenly King manor's paragon was incomparably powerful, depreciating the Qin Tian Starfield's paragon to be worthless. Some people were furious and went to challenge the geniuses of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion. However, the result was already set in stone. No one would win. This made the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion even more arrogant. If the younger generation of the Qin Heaven Starfield can defeat us, we can extend the time limit to 100 years, 1,000 years, or even more. In the end, some of the geniuses from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King mansion said. This moved the hearts of the experts from the various major factions of the Qin Heaven Starfield. If they could really extend their time, they might have a chance to find the thief and avoid being killed. At once, all the top talents from all the forces were on their way to Planet Thousand Spirits. The divine sons of the three overlord forces, as well as the top talents of the Ice Soul Clan and the Scarlet Flame Clan, all went to Planet Thousand Spirits. Of course, experts from all the major forces also secretly went to Planet Thousand Spirits. For a time, Myriad Spirit Star, the largest trading planet in the Qin Heaven Star system, became extremely lively. Lu Ming, Qiu Yu, Ouyang Xiangxiang, Yu Linglong, Wu Zifeng, and the others had also arrived on planet Myriad Spirit. The arena set up by the paragons of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion is in the central square. Let's go and take a look, Lu Ming said. Not long after they arrived at the central square. There was a huge empty space in the central square. In the middle of the empty space there was a huge fighting ring. During this period of time, this area was filled with people. On one side of the fighting ring there was a row of seats. A group of young men and women sat on the seats. These young men and women all had haughty expressions as they looked at the crowd in all directions with faint disdain in their eyes. They were all heaven's favorites from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. There are quite a lot of people here. Unfortunately, they're all trash. Not a single one of them is decent. A golden-robed young man's calm voice reverberated throughout the entire area. That's right, they're too useless. No matter what, this is still a starfield and they're just a few cats and dogs? This is really disappointing. Another young man said in disdain. In the surroundings, when the people of the Qin Heaven Starfield heard this, they were all furious. The true geniuses of my Qin Heaven Starfield haven't arrived yet. Don't be arrogant. Someone couldn't help but ask. Oh, there were real geniuses? You didn't brag about it, did you? Ah. The golden-robed young man laughed with disdain. Who's bragging? I believe those heaven's favorites will be here soon. At that time they might be able to fight with you. That person from the Qin Heaven Starfield said. Chapter 2927 Gathering of Divine Sons. You talk too much nonsense. If you have the ability, then let him out. The golden-robed youth shouted coldly. This brat, it's this brat. All of a sudden, a young man on the fighting ring roared and glared at Lu Ming. Yes, he was staring at Lu Ming. The young man had a scale between his brows. He was one of the 6 young men who had gone to the Kongxian sect with Qin Wuxiang. In fact, Lu Ming had seen this young man the moment he arrived. However, Lu Ming had no intention of avoiding him. He came here to find an opportunity to fight. Why would he need to avoid it? What? All of a sudden, the young men on the fighting ring turned to look at Lu Ming. This is the guy who defeated you? And you even humiliated Qin Wuxiang? The other young man coldly spoke, his gaze icy. This young man also had a silver-white scale on his forehead. Under the sunlight, it shimmered. It was obvious that this young man was also from the Qin clan. This person was called Qin Wuyo. That's right. It's him. This is the guy. The young man who had been to Kongxian sect roared. Good, very good. Qin Wuyo's indifferent voice rang out as a cold killing intent emanated from his body. Boom. He suddenly stood up from his seat, and a violent aura filled the air. Divine-grade divine power. This is divine-grade divine power. What a terrifying aura. Heavens, this is a divine sun-level character. Many people around the fighting ring shouted. Divine sun-level figures could be counted on one's fingers in the Qin Heaven Starfield. Each one of them was a peerless genius, an existence whose name shook the vast starry sky. Now, any one of the other party's people who stood up was such a figure. It was truly shocking. You dare to humiliate my Qin family's disciple. Although he's a piece of trash, it's not your place to humiliate him. Now get up here and accept your death. Qin Wuyo's cold voice rang out as he looked at Lu Ming with an even colder gaze. Everyone's gaze was on Lu Ming. Who is this? Many people in the Qin Heaven Star Zone did not know Lu Ming. After all, the news of the battle in the galaxy for the Star Core had only spread within a small range. Most people did not know that Lu Ming had fought the divine son of the unique Devil Academy, Mo Jui, and even suppressed him. I know him. He's a saint of the Kongxian sect. I heard he's very talented. The saint of Kongxian sect? The gap between us is too big. He probably doesn't dare to accept the challenge, right? That's for sure. The other party is the son of God. Wouldn't he be courting death if he went up? Many people around the fighting ring were discussing. Who are you? Lu Ming's expression was calm as he spoke indifferently. Qin Wuyo of the Qin family. Qin Wuyo asked, I'm sorry, you misunderstood me? I mean, who do you think you are? You want me to fight and I want to fight? Lu Ming smiled faintly. What did you just say? Qin Huai's face instantly darkened, and his killing intent became several times colder. Your ears aren't good either? Lu Ming said indifferently. In the surroundings, the hearts of many people from the Qin Heaven Star Zone were beating wildly. They were all impressed by Lu Ming's courage. Some people were still thinking that although Lu Ming did not dare to go up and fight, he was really bold to speak to the other party like that. You're looking for death. Qin Huai's voice became extremely cold. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed down like an angry lion, pouncing on his prey. 6th level heavenly deity. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. The moment the other party made his move, he had already seen through the other party's cultivation. A 6th level celestial deity with divine grade divine power. This person was likely to be on the same level as Mo. His combat strength was far above Qin Wuxiang's. Lu Ming circulated the divine power in his body and was about to attack. If you want to fight, I'll fight you. All of a sudden, a voice was heard not far from Lu Ming and the others. Then a burly figure burst out and a scorching aura filled the air. Boom. The two figures met in midair and collided fiercely. It was like two meteors had collided, creating shockwaves that spread in all directions. It was extremely terrifying. Then the two figures trembled and floated backward. It's him. Lu Ming's heart stirred. The one who had rushed out to exchange blows with Qin Wuyo was the boundless sacred land's divine son. Tsangyan Pajun. It's Tsangyan Pajuan. He's making his move. The divine child level character has arrived. Haha, this is going to be interesting. Lu Ming is so lucky. Otherwise he would have been in danger just now. Many people were overjoyed to see Tsangyan Pajun attack. Tsangyan Pajuan, as the peak figure of the younger generation in the Qin Heaven Starfield, his combat strength far exceeded the other geniuses. With him, they could finally fight against the geniuses of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor and not be suppressed so badly. Interesting. I didn't expect that the Qin Heaven Starfield would still have a decent opponent. Qin Wuyo glared at Tsangyan Pajuan, revealing a strong battle intent. Cut the crap and make your move. I want to see how strong the paragon of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion is. Tsangyan Pajuan shouted coldly as the heat from his body grew stronger and stronger. His battle intent was even stronger than his opponent. Thump. Tsangyan Pajuan's figure moved and rushed up the fighting stage. His meaning was self-evident. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Qin Wuyo said ferociously. With a flash of his body he also rushed into the fighting ring. Boom. Without any unnecessary words, Tsangyan Pajuan and Qin Wuyo started fighting. 7 Injury Divine Fist. Qin Huai's entire body glowed as he used the 7 Injury Divine Fist. 2 terrifying fist prints burst out and crushed towards Tsangyan Pajuan. It was the same 7 Injury Divine Fist technique, but Qin Huai's was much more powerful than Qin Wuxiang's. Ashen Flame Explosive Fist. Grey Flame Breaking Army also used fist techniques, but his fist techniques were different. They were direct and overbearing, and each punch was like a star exploding with endless power. The two of them clashed head-on and fought intensely. The huge fighting ring was filled with their fist forces. In an instant the two of them exchanged dozens of moves, but there was no clear winner. Boom. In the end, with a loud boom, the two of them retreated and stood on both sides of the fighting ring. Interesting. I didn't expect that there would be a decent opponent in the Qin Heaven Starfield. However, only one is far from enough. Are there any other decent experts? Come out together. In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, the golden-robed young man stood up and said lazily, his eyes sweeping around. Bus. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of a sword could be heard from not far away. Then a ray of sword light appeared in the sky above the fighting ring. This young man was handsome. He was the divine son of the indestructible sword sect, the Boundless Sword Dao. As soon as Boundless Sword Dao appeared, a demonic light flashed from another direction. A black-robed young man appeared in the sky above the fighting stage. He was the divine son of the unique demon academy, Mo. The divine sons of the 3 overlord forces had gathered. Interesting. Anything else? The gold-robed youth asked. Since you want to meet him, then let's meet him. At this time a cold voice rang out. In the sky, a cold aura filled the air as a white-robed young man strolled over. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. 1,000-year bet: with every step the white-robed young man took, a snow-white divine bird would appear under his feet, making him look like a celestial being. It's similar to Bing Qing. Lu Ming's heart stirred. It's the Ice Immortal, the seventh young master of the Ice Soul clan. He's the most powerful heaven's favorite, the Ice Immortal. Someone shouted. As expected. Lu Ming pondered. No wonder she looked similar to Bing Qing. Back then, Bing Qing had told him that in the ancient god world, there were 4 people who had cultivated the ancient god body, and his 7th brother was one of them. However, this name was really feminine. However, the temperament of the ice fairy was quite in line with this name. Boom. As soon as she came out, a hot aura came from the other side. Then, a burly young man walked over and appeared on the other side of her. Red Flame Demon Pine. Someone spoke out the person's name. This young man was a peerless heaven's favorite of the Red Flame race, who was as famous as the Ice Fairy. The appearance of the Ice Fairy and the Red Flame Demon Pine made the golden rogue young man's eyes slightly narrow. That was because the two of them gave him a lot of pressure. Interesting. I didn't expect that the Qin Heaven Starfield would actually give birth to so many interesting geniuses. The golden rogue young man said coldly. However, his expression finally became more cautious and did not reveal his lazy expression. Do your words from before still count? At this moment Lu Ming spoke. What he was asking was naturally what the other party had said. As long as the Qin Heaven Starfield's geniuses could defeat them, they would give the Qin Heaven Starfield some time and extend the deadline for this matter. Of course it counts. As long as you can defeat us, we can give you 100 years. The golden rogue youth said. 100 years is too short. As long as we defeat you, you will have to leave the Qin Heaven Starfield forever and never commit this crime again. Lu Ming said. Withdraw forever? You're so arrogant. That's impossible. The golden rogue youth's face darkened as he coldly said. What's wrong? Are you guys not confident? Lu Ming sneered. What a joke. Although you have a few geniuses, you think you can defeat us with just a few of you? What a joke. The golden rogue youth laughed coldly. Then why wouldn't I dare to agree? Lu Ming retorted sarcastically. If you don't agree, it's a matter of principle. It doesn't mean that you have a chance of winning. It's absolutely impossible for you to withdraw forever, but I can report to the higher-ups and delay it for a while. After the young man in the golden robe finished speaking, he took out a voice transmission jade talisman and sent a message. Then he waited quietly. Not long after, the golden-robed young man received a reply. His expression changed and he said, If you can defeat us, we can give you 1,000 years at most. This is the longest limit. Of course you have no chance. The golden-robed young man was still full of confidence. We'll only know if there's a chance after we fight. 1,000 years is 1,000 years, so be it. Let's fight. Lu Ming agreed immediately. Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji, Azure Flame Army Breaker, Red Flame Demon Pine, Ice Fairy, and the rest of the strongest heaven's favorites did not say anything, which meant that they had silently agreed. Many people found it strange that Mo Jui and the rest did not stop Lu Ming from acting on his own accord. In front of these divine sons, did Lu Ming have the right? Of course they did not know that Mo Jui and the others knew Lu Ming's strength. They had long treated Lu Ming as someone on the same level as them. As for the Ice Fairy, although the Red Flame Demonic Pine had never fought with Lu Ming, they were well informed and naturally knew about the fight between Lu Ming and Mo Jui. Therefore they did not object to Lu Ming's decision. If he could fight for 1,000 years, it would be good enough. It was much better than 10 years. Wait a minute, now is not the time for a battle. The battle will be held in 3 months right here. The gold rogue youth suddenly said. 3 months later? That's fine too. Lu Ming had an idea and nodded in agreement. He understood that the reason why the other party had delayed for 3 months was most likely because there were still heaven's favorites who had yet to arrive. However, how could he not need time? How should we fight in 3 months? What are the rules? Ice Immortal asked. It's very simple. We'll have an arena battle. Both sides will be the defending side. Whoever stands on the arena last will win. Of course, there must be a limit to the number of people on both sides. Otherwise the competition will be endless. How about this? I'll give you all a chance. I'll send 9 people and you can send 18. How about it? The golden rogue youth said. All right, it's decided then. Ice Fairy immediately agreed. He would be a bastard if he didn't take advantage of the situation. Although numbers didn't have much use in a battle between top heaven's favorites, this was an arena battle. Both sides were defending the arena and they used a wheel battle. If they had more people, they could still exhaust the other side's divine power. It was more or less useful. Then it's decided. 3 months later we'll fight here. Let me see what kind of combat power Yu Qingtian Starfield's younger generation has. Let's go. The golden-robed young man turned into a golden light and left the place. Kid, someone blocked it for you today, but you won't get the chance every time. I hope you don't have to face me in the next arena battle. Qin Huai's cold gaze swept toward Lu Ming. Qin Huio, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. I promise that this kid won't dare to fight in the next arena battle. Another young man from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion sneered. There's no need to use such a low-level goading method. He'll definitely participate in the next arena battle. Lu Ming said indifferently. I hope so. Qin Huio left this sentence and also left the place. The people of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion also left. Let's discuss the candidates for the battle in 3 months. Ice Fairy looked at Red Flame Magic Pine, Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji, Lu Ming and Sangyan Army Destroyer. You can discuss the candidates. Just leave me a spot. Lu Ming left with Qiu Yu and the rest and turned to leave. Lu Ming, is he really going to fight? If it wasn't for the Ash Grey Flame Army Destroyer, he would have already died. It's for the sake of face, right? Being provoked in front of so many people and not accepting the challenge, wouldn't that be a complete loss of face? That's true, but it's not wise to risk your life for the sake of face. The surrounding people were all discussing. These people have no idea how powerful young master is. After Qiu Yu heard that, she pouted unhappily. It's fine. Lu Ming smiled faintly and did not mind. They left the place and found an inn to stay in. Lu Ming stayed in a guest room alone and sat cross-legged on the bed. Old Liang, it's been 200 years. How's your refinement of the Star Core's energy going? Lu Ming asked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. A 1,000-year bet. With every step the white-robed young man took, a snow-white divine bird would appear under his feet, making him look like a celestial being. It's similar to Bing Qing. Lu Ming's heart stirred. It's the Ice Immortal, the 7th young master of the Ice Soul clan. He's the most powerful heaven's favorite, the Ice Immortal. Someone shouted. As expected. Lu Ming pondered. No wonder she looked similar to Bing Qing. Back then, Bing Qing had told him that in the ancient god world, there were 4 people who had cultivated the ancient god body, and his 7th brother was one of them. However, this name was really feminine. However, the temperament of the Ice Fairy was quite in line with this name. Boom. As soon as she came out, a hot aura came from the other side. Then, a burly young man walked over and appeared on the other side of her. Red Flame Demon Pine. Someone spoke out the person's name. This young man was a peerless heaven's favorite of the Red Flame race, who was as famous as the Ice Fairy. The appearance of the Ice Fairy and the Red Flame Demon Pine made the golden-robed young man's eyes slightly narrow. That was because the two of them gave him a lot of pressure. Interesting. I didn't expect that the Qin Heaven Starfield would actually give birth to so many interesting geniuses. The golden-robed young man said coldly. However, his expression finally became more cautious and did not reveal his lazy expression. Do your words from before still count? At this moment Lu Ming spoke. What he was asking was naturally what the other party had said. As long as the Qin Heaven Starfield's geniuses could defeat them, they would give the Qin Heaven Starfield some time and extend the deadline for this matter. Of course it counts. As long as you can defeat us, we can give you 100 years. The golden-robed youth said. 100 years is too short. As long as we defeat you, you will have to leave the Qin Heaven Starfield forever and never commit this crime again. Lu Ming said. Withdraw forever? You're so arrogant. That's impossible. The golden-robed youth's face darkened as he coldly said. What's wrong? Are you guys not confident? Lu Ming sneered. What a joke. Although you have a few geniuses, you think you can defeat us with just a few of you? What a joke. The golden-robed youth laughed coldly. Then why wouldn't I dare to agree? Lu Ming retorted sarcastically. If you don't agree, it's a matter of principle. It doesn't mean that you have a chance of winning. It's absolutely impossible for you to withdraw forever, but I can report to the higher-ups and delay it for a while. After the young man in the golden robe finished speaking, he took out a voice transmission jade talisman and sent a message. Then he waited quietly. Not long after, the golden-robed young man received a reply. His expression changed and he said, If you can defeat us, we can give you 1,000 years at most. This is the longest limit. Of course you have no chance. The golden-robed young man was still full of confidence. We'll only know if there's a chance after we fight. 1,000 years is 1,000 years, so be it. Let's fight. Lu Ming agreed immediately. Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji, Azure Flame Army Breaker, Red Flame Demon Pine, Ice Fairy, and the rest of the strongest heaven's favorites did not say anything, which meant that they had silently agreed. Many people found it strange that Mo Jui and the rest did not stop Lu Ming from acting on his own accord. In front of these divine sons, did Lu Ming have the right? Of course, they did not know that Mo Jui and the others knew Lu Ming's strength. They had long treated Lu Ming as someone on the same level as them. As for the Ice Fairy, although the Red Flame Demonic Pine had never fought with Lu Ming, they were well informed and naturally knew about the fight between Lu Ming and Mo Jui. Therefore, they did not object to Lu Ming's decision. If he could fight for 1,000 years, it would be good enough. It was much better than 10 years. Wait a minute, now is not the time for a battle. The battle will be held in 3 months right here. The gold-robed youth suddenly said. 3 months later? That's fine too. Lu Ming had an idea and nodded in agreement. He understood that the reason why the other party had delayed for 3 months was most likely because there were still heaven's favorites who had yet to arrive. However, how could he not need time? How should we fight in 3 months? What are the rules? Ice Immortal asked. It's very simple. We'll have an arena battle. Both sides will be the defending side. Whoever stands on the arena last will win. Of course, there must be a limit to the number of people on both sides. Otherwise, the competition will be endless. How about this? I'll give you all a chance. I'll send 9 people and you can send 18. How about it? The golden-robed youth said. All right, it's decided then. Ice Fairy immediately agreed. He would be a bastard if he didn't take advantage of the situation. Although numbers didn't have much use in a battle between top heaven's favorites, this was an arena battle. Both sides were defending the arena and they used a wheel battle. If they had more people, they could still exhaust the other side's divine power. It was more or less useful. Then it's decided. 3 months later, we'll fight here. Let me see what kind of combat power Yu Qingtian Starfield's younger generation has. Let's go. The golden-robed young man turned into a golden light and left the place. Kid, someone blocked it for you today, but you won't get the chance every time. I hope you don't have to face me in the next arena battle. Qin Huai's cold gaze swept toward Lu Ming. Qin Huio, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. I promise that this kid won't dare to fight in the next arena battle. Another young man from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion sneered. There's no need to use such a low-level goading method. He'll definitely participate in the next arena battle. Lu Ming said indifferently. I hope so. Qin Huio left this sentence and also left the place. The people of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion also left. Let's discuss the candidates for the battle in 3 months. Ice Fairy looked at Red Flame Magic Pine, Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji, Lu Ming and Sangyan Army Destroyer. You can discuss the candidates. Just leave me a spot. Lu Ming left with Qiu Yu and the rest and turned to leave. Lu Ming, is he really going to fight? If it wasn't for the Ash Grey Flame Army Destroyer, he would have already died. It's for the sake of face, right? Being provoked in front of so many people and not accepting the challenge, wouldn't that be a complete loss of face? That's true, but it's not wise to risk your life for the sake of face. The surrounding people were all discussing. These people have no idea how powerful young master is. After Qiu Yu heard that, she pouted unhappily. It's fine. Lu Ming smiled faintly and did not mind. They left the place and found an inn to stay in. Lu Ming stayed in a guest room alone and sat cross-legged on the bed. Old Liang, it's been 200 years. How's your refinement of the Star Core's energy going? Lu Ming asked. Third-level heavenly deity. Given his current cultivation, Lu Ming did not have the slightest confidence that he could participate in the arena battle this time. The paragons of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor were unfathomable, and no one knew how many powerful existences there were. This time it was very likely that it was only a drop in the ocean. Lu Ming wanted to improve himself to his strongest state. Lu Ming needed to use the energy of the Star Core to break through to the next realm. In the past 200 years, Lu Ming did not use the energy from the Star Core. He had been absorbing energy to cultivate. Otherwise, his cultivation would not have improved so slowly. After 200 years, the quantity formula must have refined some of the energy, right? I did refine some, but not too much. It's all because your cultivation is too low, which greatly reduced the speed of my refining. The quantity formula complained. It should be enough for me to break through to the second-level celestial deity realm. Lu Ming muttered. Why was he the one to blame in the end? Your cultivation has already reached peak first-level celestial deity. Charging to second-level celestial deity is naturally a matter of certainty. But you're currently in control of 10 types of divine power. Wanting to charge to third-level celestial deity is hard to say, the quantity formula said. It already has so much energy? Come on, give it a try. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. If he could increase his realm, his confidence would increase. Then I'm ready. The voice of the measure formula was heard. Following that, the measure word in his sea of consciousness emitted a dazzling radiance. A pure and rich energy surged out wildly and rushed into Lu Ming's limbs and bones. Lu Ming circulated the universe thousand Tao scripture at full force and began to absorb this energy to break through to the next realm. This energy was too strong. Lu Ming felt his entire body swelling up and being filled with violent energy. What a rich energy. Such a rich energy, but it's only a small part of the star core. Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was happy. This energy was extremely pure. Although it was extremely rich, the speed at which it was absorbed was also very fast. Under the effect of the universal Tao scripture, the energy was quickly absorbed and transformed into Lu Ming's divine power. The 10 divine flames in his dantian grew brighter and brighter. Boom. There was a loud boom in Lu Ming's body and the 10 divine flames were strung together. In an instant, Lu Ming's aura increased by a large margin. Second-level celestial deity breakthrough. After breaking through to the second-tier celestial god realm, Lu Ming did not stop. There was still a lot of energy left in his body. Lu Ming continued to refine this energy. His cultivation level was rapidly increasing. Second-level heavenly deity stable, early stage, middle stage. Very soon, Lu Ming charged to peak second-level celestial deity. He was not far from third-level celestial deity either. There was still some energy left in his body. However, it was still not enough to use it to charge for the third-level celestial deity realm. Let's do it in one go. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with determination. With a wave of his hand, a huge pile of divine crystals appeared on the ground. These divine crystals were all mid-grade divine crystals, and the divine qi within them was several times denser than low-grade divine crystals. This was a rare opportunity. Lu Ming wanted to charge to the third-level celestial deity realm in one go. Bang, bang, bang. A large pile of divine crystals exploded and turned into divine qi. Lu Ming opened his mouth and the divine qi surged into his mouth like a tidal wave, which he swallowed. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming began to put all his effort into refining this divine qi. He was going to use this divine qi to complement the remaining energy from before and charge for the third-level celestial deity realm. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Lu Ming had already accumulated a large amount of energy after refining the divine crystals. Begin. With a thought, he fused the energy from refining the divine crystal with the energy from before and started to charge towards the third-level celestial deity realm. 3 months had passed and a large number of creatures had gathered in the central square of planet Thousand Spirits. The Qin Heaven Star region had all sorts of races and it was filled with people. This time, even many top experts from the major forces had arrived. For example, the elders of the major forces were all observing in secret. After all, this battle wasn't just a battle between the younger generation. It also concerned the safety of the Qin Heaven Star region. The 9 absolute heavenly king mansions people are here. Someone suddenly shouted. In the distance, many beams of light flew over. There were dozens of them. Among them, there were more than a dozen older people, and they all seemed to be powerhouses with shocking strength. The rest were all young people. These people stood in the air above the fighting ring and looked around arrogantly. Compared to the number of people around the square, their numbers were pitifully small. However, their aura had suppressed the Qin Heaven Starfield side. Qin Heaven Starfield, where are the people you want to send out? Come out. It was still the same golden-robed young man from last time. He stepped forward and his voice spread throughout the entire area. Ice Immortal stepped out and appeared in the air. Then Red Flame Magic Pine Mo Jui Sword Dao Wuji and the others all stepped out. There were a total of 17 people. Almost all of them were from the Red Flame clan, the Ice Soul clan, and the 3 Overlord forces. Only 17 people. You guys seem to be missing one person. Where's that arrogant kid from last time? Why didn't he come? The golden-robed youth's gaze swept across the crowd as he laughed. Ice Immortal and the others looked at each other, and their eyes darkened. They were indeed short of one person. That was because Lu Ming had not arrived. It's Lu Ming. Lu Ming is not here. What about Lu Ming? Could it be that he doesn't dare to come at such a critical moment? He definitely doesn't dare to come. He has offended the paragon of the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. How would he dare to come? He'll die if he comes. I knew it. He's just being stubborn and doesn't dare to fight. The people from the Qin Heaven Star Zone mumbled. Most of them felt that Lu Ming would not dare to come. Hee, that kid only knows how to rely on his mouth. He's a coward. Qin Wuyo sneered. Who said that the young master doesn't dare to come? At this time, a delicate shout came from the distance. Then a few figures walked over. They were Lu Ming, Qiuyu, Ouyang Qingxiang and the others. It was Qiuyu who had just spoken. A faint smile hung on Lu Ming's face. Not long ago he had finally charged to the 3rd level celestial deity in one go. It was also because he was charging to the 3rd level celestial deity that he had arrived a little later. He really dared to come? Many people's gazes flickered as if they had not expected this. Very good. Qin Huai's eyes flashed with a ferocious light. He licked his lips and didn't even try to hide his cold killing intent. You guys wait for me here, let's go, Lu Ming said to Qiuyu and the rest. He stepped forward and came to the side of the ice deity and the rest. On the side of the Qin Heaven Starfield, all 18 people had arrived. Where are your 9 people? Who are the 9 people? Ice Immortal asked. Bang, bang. As soon as Ice Immortal finished speaking, a young man stepped out from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. Including the golden-robed young man and Qin Wuxiang, there were 9 people in total. 9 people, 7 men and 2 women. Ice Immortal and the others looked at the 9 people with a serious expression, because they couldn't see through some of them at all. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2931 Difference. Everyone's here, let us guard the ring first. The golden-robed young man then nodded to a young man with a single horn on his head. The young man nodded and moved, landing on the fighting ring. 9 absolute heavenly king mansions. Su Hua, who wants to fight? The young man with a horn on his head shouted. He swept his gaze across Lu Ming and the rest, and a powerful aura burst out from his body. 6th level celestial deity. The horned young man, Su Hua, was a 6th level heavenly deity. Judging from his aura, the divine power he controlled should be divine grade divine power. I'll fight you. A cold voice was heard. Then a sword light flashed and a young man with a long sword on his back appeared on the fighting ring. This young man was from the Eternal Sword Sect. Zhuiyue from the Inextinguishable Sword Sect. The youth with the long sword on his back said. A ray of sword light shot into the sky. In terms of aura, he did not lose to Su Hua at all. He was also a 6th level heavenly deity. This outstanding was no less famous than Zhuo Buzhu in the Immortal Sword Sect. He was also a heaven's favorite second only to the sword Dao Wuji. It looks like you are a sword cultivator. Interesting. Make your move. Let me see what kind of combat power a sword cultivator from the Qin Heaven Starfield has. Su Hua licked his lips and his eyes lit up. I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuiyue snorted coldly. The moment he finished speaking, the combat sword on his back was unsheathed at an astonishing speed. Many people did not see how he had unsheathed his combat sword. They only saw a sword light like a flying immortal from beyond the heavens, tear through the air and kill Su Hua. However, Su Hua was not slow at all. Buzz. In his hand, a dazzling white blade light bloomed and slashed forward. Clang, clang, clang. In the next moment the two of them clashed. Sword light and saber light kept clashing in the air. In a breath's time, the two of them had exchanged at least a few hundred moves. The next moment, the two figures separated at the same time and floated back. Who won? Everyone quickly observed carefully. On the surface, the two of them were both 6th level heavenly deities and the divine power they controlled was also divine grade divine power. There shouldn't be much of a difference in their strength. At this moment, Zuyu's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Buzz. He used his sword to support his body and barely managed to keep himself from falling. Zhuiyue lost? How is that possible? Many people were shocked. Upon a closer look, they realized that there was a deep knife wound on Zhuiyu's chest, almost cutting him in half. The terrifying force of the blade continued to drill into Zhuiyu's body, forcing him to use all his divine power to resist. On the other hand, Su Hua was calm and composed. His breathing was steady and he was completely fine. You're not bad to be able to survive one of my attacks. However, as a sword cultivator, I'm really disappointed that you only have this little attack power. Su Hua said indifferently. His tone was filled with disdain. Zhuyu spat out another mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with confusion. As a sword cultivator, he was originally known for his strong attack power. However, in the collision just now, he was completely at a disadvantage and was no match for his opponent. One had to know that they were of the same level. The divine power that Su Hua controlled was only divine-grade divine power and not divine-grade divine power. This was something that he found difficult to accept. This Su Hua's control of divine power is too strong. Whether it's his divine skills or secret arts, they're all shockingly powerful. Ice Immortal said with a serious expression. As expected of a heaven's favorite from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. His use of divine power is really amazing. Mo Jui spoke as well, his expression extremely solemn. Even though the strength of Shin power was the same, the difference in the use of it would result in a world of difference in power. For example, if an ordinary person had the same strength of 50 kilograms, he would only use brute force to attack randomly. However, a martial arts expert could accurately use this 50 kilograms of strength and explode with several times the power. Naturally, there was a huge difference in combat power. Therefore, Zhuyu, who seemed to have the same cultivation level as Su Hua, was easily defeated. Seeing that you're able to take one of my attacks without dying, I won't kill you. Get lost. Su Hua waved his hand and said, Junior brother Tai, you may leave. Sword Dao Wuji said, and Zhuyu retreated helplessly. Who else come up and fight? Su Hua said loudly. I'll do it. A young man stepped out from the unique demon academy and landed on the battle stage. This young man was also a peerless genius. Whether it was his divine power level or cultivation, he was in existence on the same level as an outstanding person. Unfortunately, this person was no match for Su Hua. After exchanging dozens of moves, he was severely injured by Su Hua in one move. He fled from the fighting ring in a panic with a pale face. 2 consecutive defeats. This caused the hearts of everyone in the Qin Heaven Starfield to sink. The other party had only sent out a 6th-level heavenly deity Saint Child character. The Qin Heaven Star region had sent out a character of the same level, but it was a one-sided situation. How could they fight like this? Could it be that they had to send out a divine sun-level figure at this time? This way the situation would be too passive. Right now we can't attack. Otherwise we'll be too passive. Continue to send people up and exhaust his divine power. He's using his ultimate moves continuously, so his divine power will definitely be consumed very quickly. Ice Immortal and the others discussed in secret and finally decided to send more masters. Next, the Boundless Holy Land sent a genius to fight Su Hua. This time, the Qin Heaven Starfield had sent 18 people. Their combat strength was at least at the outstanding level. The 3 overlord forces, the Ice Soul Clan, and the Scarlet Flame Clan could be said to have sent out all their talents. This time, the Boundless Sacred Lands prodigy didn't go head-to-head with his opponent. Instead, he engaged in a dogfight to exhaust his opponent's divine power. After close to 100 moves, the Boundless Sacred Lands genius was finally defeated and sent off the stage. 3 consecutive defeats. The other party had only sent out 1 heaven's favorite and had defeated 3 of their heaven's favorites in a row. If the heaven's favorites sent out later were all unrivaled existences of the same level, how could they compete? I'll do it. At this moment, a genius from the Ice Soul Clan stepped onto the fighting ring. The Ice Soul Clan's paragon froze the entire fighting ring as soon as he made his move. Even the space seemed to be frozen. What Su Hua used was a swift blade. His attack was fast and so was his body. He was restrained by the Ice Soul Clan's paragon, so his attack speed was greatly reduced. Moreover, he had fought 3 battles in a row, and his divine power had been greatly consumed. For a moment he was actually at a disadvantage. There's a chance. This caused the eyes of many people in the Qin Heaven Starfield to light up, feeling that there was hope of winning. After the Ice Soul Clan's paragon took control of the situation, he launched a storm of attacks, forcing Su Hua to retreat. An ice sword slashed across Su Hua's shoulder, causing blood to spurt out. Ice Sword Divine Domain, defeat me. The paragon of the Ice Soul Clan used his ultimate move. He condensed hundreds of ice swords, which sealed off the surroundings and flew towards Su Hua. Su Hua quickly struck out with his saber and destroyed the ice swords. However, there were too many ice swords and he couldn't block all of them. Finally, an ice sword pierced through Su Hua's stomach and brought him out of the fighting ring. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Not worthy of me taking action, you too, die. Su Hua roared as he was about to fly out of the fighting ring. The horn between his brows glowed and flew out. It turned into a saber and slashed at the Ice Soul Clan's paragon. Ah! The Ice Soul Clan's paragon let out a blood-curdling screech as he was struck. He was forced to retreat and fell off the fighting ring with Su Hua. After Su Hua fell off the fighting ring, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He quickly took out a healing divine pill and consumed it to heal his injuries. The Ice Soul Clan's prodigy was even more severely injured and almost died. An Ice Soul Clan overlord quickly saved his life. In this battle, both sides suffered losses. A Heaven's favorite from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion had defeated the 4 of them. After this battle, the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion sent out another Heaven's favorite. His strength was not weaker than Su Hua's. On the Qin Heaven Starfield side, they had learned their lesson this time. They had more people and used a method of attrition. At the start, they didn't seek to win but rather to exhaust the other party's divine power. Just like this, after the Qin Heaven Starfield side lost 2 people in a row, the third person and the other party both suffered heavy injuries. This way there were only 7 people left from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. While the Qin Heaven Starfield had expended 7 people, leaving only 11 people. The difference in numbers between the 2 sides was rapidly closing. The situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous to the Qin Heaven Star region. Next, I'll do it. A cold voice rang out. In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, Qin Wuyo stepped onto the battle platform. They've mobilized a Divine Sun-level character. Everyone's eyes focused. Qin Wuyo landed on the fighting ring and his gaze landed on Lu Ming. "Brat, get down here and fight me." Qin Wuyo shouted coldly. He didn't even try to hide his cold-killing intent. "You're not qualified for me to make a move," Lu Ming said calmly. He had no intention of making a move. There were definitely stronger Heaven's favorites in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. It was not a good time for him to make a move. He couldn't reveal his strength too early. He could only take action at the critical moment to settle the situation. This battle concerned the safety of the Qin Heaven Star Zone. Naturally, Lu Ming would not act on impulse. However, the others did not know what Lu Ming was thinking. They thought that Lu Ming was afraid. "I'm not qualified for you to make a move? Haha, I really don't know if you're arrogant or ignorant." Qin Wuyo laughed, his eyes extremely cold. He was an existence who could control divine-grade divine power. Lu Ming actually said that he was not qualified for Lu Ming to make a move? It was simply laughable. "I'm just telling the truth," Lu Ming said indifferently. He's really shameless." Now, the people from the Qin Heaven Star Zone were naturally on Lu Ming's side. However, at this moment they could not help but sigh. Lu Ming was really shameless. He obviously didn't dare to make a move, but he said that the other party wasn't qualified for him to make a move. In the past, the other party was a figure who had fought with Grey Flame Army Destroyer. Was such a person not enough for Lu Ming to fight? He was too full of himself. Of course, that was what everyone thought. At this time they would not help Qin Wuyo to force Lu Ming. In order to survive, you really can say anything. Qin Wuyo was furious, but Lu Ming refused to do anything. He had no choice but to look at the others and roared, "Who wants to fight me? Who should we send?" Ice Fairy, Red Flame Demonic Pine, Mo Jui, and the others began to discuss. "This Qin Wuyo is very strong. I don't have the confidence to fight him." Songyin Pajuan frowned. Of course they had discussed this through telepathy. "I think we can't waste our advantage in numbers. Let them waste this person's divine power first, then we'll attack and take him down," the elder said. Mo Jui said. Now they still had 11 people. Other than the 6 of them, Ice Fairy, Scarlet Flame Demonic Pine, Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji Ashen Flame Army Breaker, and Lu Ming, the other 5 were all 6th level Celestial Deity Holy Sons. He was definitely no match for a Heaven's favorite like Qin Wuyo, but he could exhaust his divine power. The Ice Soul Clan is the best in terms of fighting and consuming the opponent's divine power. Scarlet Flame Demon Pine laughed indifferently. Ice Immortal's face darkened slightly. The Red Flame Demon Pine was obviously up to no good. It was extremely dangerous to let someone exhaust Qin Wuyo's divine power now. One careless mistake and there was a risk of death. That's right. I think so too. No one is more suitable than the Ice Soul Clan to consume divine power. Mo Jui chimed in. Several people spoke in succession, and Ice Immortal was also helpless. Ice Lake, it's your turn. Remember, be careful and only fight with your opponent. If the situation doesn't look good, charge down the fighting stage and admit defeat. The Ice Immortal looked at a young man from the Ice Soul Clan. All right. Binghu nodded and leaped onto the fighting stage, standing far away from Qin Wuyo. You actually sent such a piece of trash to fight me? What? Are you trying to exhaust my divine power first? Hehe, what a joke. Qin Wuyo sneered as he saw through the thoughts of the Ice Immortal and the others. 10,000 miles of ice sword. Binghu took the lead and slammed his palm on the fighting ring. Endless coldness emerged and froze the entire fighting ring. Sharp ice swords were stuck in the fighting ring. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. Then countless ice swords formed and flew toward Qin Wuyo. Small tricks break for me, die. Qin Wuyo shouted coldly as his body exploded with dazzling light. His terrifying divine power formed a wave of divine power that rushed out. Bang, bang, bang. The ice sword that was charging at him, as well as the surrounding ice, exploded in an instant. 7 injury divine fist. Qin Wuyo stepped forward and threw a punch at the frozen lake. Boom, boom, boom. Wherever the fist force passed, all the ice shattered, turning into fragments that flew everywhere. The fist force didn't stop and continued to press down on the ice lake. Ice sword slash, ice sword. Binghu shouted as he clenched his fists in the air. Endless cold intent gathered and formed a huge ice sword, slashing down at Qin Wuyo's fist force. Boom. The ice sword collided with the fist force, causing a violent vibration. But in the next moment, Binghu's body trembled. The ice sword in his hand exploded, and his body was sent flying back. He coughed up blood in midair. The two of them were both at the 6th level heavenly god realm, but one of them controlled the divine grade divine power while the other controlled the divine grade divine power. The difference in their combat strength was truly shocking. Ice Lake was completely outmatched. They were completely crushed. Kill, die. Qin Wuyo shouted coldly. His body turned into a stream of light as he charged towards the frozen lake. Not good, Ice Lake, quickly retreat, get off the fighting stage. Ice Immortal's expression changed drastically as she quickly sent a message to Binghu. And NBSP what? Binghu was shocked as well. And NBSP he used all his divine power to retreat and rush off the stage. However, he had just been sent flying and his body was no longer as agile. It was too late to retreat. Kill, die. Qin Wuyo shouted as he threw out his fists. A terrifying fist force broke out of his body and headed toward the frozen lake. In the blink of an eye, the fist force was in front of Binghu. In such a situation, Ice Lake could only defend with all its might. In front of him, he had set up a shield made of 9 layers of ice. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2931 Sword Dao Confrontation. However, Ice Lake's many layers of defense couldn't change his fate. Boom, boom. When Qin Wuyo's 7 injuries fist force came crashing down, the 9 layers of ice shields were shattered one after another. Bang. The fist force hit Binghu's body, causing him to scream in pain. His body fell heavily on the fighting stage. Many of his bones were broken, and his body was like a pool of mud, lying on the ground with blood flowing out. However, he was not dead yet. However, Qin Wuyo didn't stop. He looked down from above and formed a long spear in his hand, throwing it at the frozen lake. The long spear pierced through Binghu's forehead. This time, Binghu had completely fallen. Damn it! The ice deity roared in anger and glared at Qin Wuyo. He was already defeated just now. Why did you still want to kill him? In my hands, defeat means death. Qin Wuyo said coldly. You. Ice Immortal was furious. What a good defeat means death. They'll slaughter you. Sangyen Pajuan roared and rushed up the fighting stage, his body emitting a hot aura. You should have attacked long ago. You called a piece of trash to come up and die. Do you really think you can consume my divine power? You're really delusional. Qin Wuyo sneered. Kill? Sangyen Pajuan roared in anger. His body was covered in flames as he charged towards Qin Wuyo. 7 injury divine fist. Qin Wuyo used the 7 divine injury fist to fight with the Ash-Gray Flame Army Destroyer. The two of them had fought last time, but there was no clear winner. This time the battle was even more intense. Boom, boom. Both of their attacks were domineering. They met force with force and their fist forces constantly collided. In an instant they had punched each other hundreds of times. King Kong of Fury. Suddenly, Sangyen Pajuan shouted and the flames on his body became even more intense. The endless flames condensed into a giant that was 100 meters tall. This one was huge and held a flaming mace in his hand. Raging Vajra. Sangyin Pajun actually managed to cultivate the Raging Vajra. Sangyin Pajun's talent is truly amazing. He has even successfully cultivated such a secret skill. His combat strength is no weaker than Mo Jui and Boundless Sword Dao. Many people exclaimed. In the past, when Mo Jui and Boundless Sword Dao had cultivated an ancient god body, many people thought that Sangyin Pajun's strength would be surpassed. However, now that they had seen Sangyin Pajun cultivate the Raging King Kong, they knew that he was not weak at all. Kill, die. Sangyin Pajun roared in anger. The King Kong of Wrath waved his mace and smashed it towards Qin Wuyo. Qin Huai's eyes turned serious as he faced the Raging Vajra. Qin Huai's face suddenly turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood gathered on his fists, making his fist force even more powerful. The more injured he was, the more powerful the 7-injury divine fist was. Boom. Boom. Qin Wuyo wasn't afraid at all. He rushed toward the King of Wrath and continuously struck out with the 7 divine injures fist, engaging in an intense battle with the Grey Flame Army Destroyer. The battle between the two had entered a state of white heat, and they both used their ultimate moves. Boom. The King Kong of Fury had astonishing power, and the temperature of its flames was even more terrifying. During the confrontation, it actually suppressed Qin Wuyo and gained a slight upper hand. Sangyin Pajun is going to win. The people of the Qin Heaven Starfield were overjoyed. In the battle between the Divine Sons, they were finally not as passive as the Holy Sons, who could not withstand a single blow. This secret technique is somewhat similar to the Divine Dragon materialization art. Lu Ming pondered. He felt that Sangyin Pajun's King Kong of Fury was similar to the Divine Dragon materialization technique. However, he wasn't that optimistic. He was certain that Sangyin Pajun would win. Sure enough, from the start, the ashen flames of destruction had the upper hand. He suppressed Qin Wushang and even injured him. However, after Qin Wushang was injured, the power of the 7 divine injures fist became stronger. Gradually, it was even with the fire of destruction. One had to admit that a secret skill like the 7 divine injuries fist was truly abnormal. The more injured he was, the more powerful he would be. This was extremely advantageous in battle. For example, when others were injured in a great battle, their strength would become weaker and weaker, but you would become stronger and stronger. How terrifying was that? So, from the start, Sangyin Pajun had the upper hand, but later on the two of them ended up in a draw. However, it would also be very difficult for Qin Wuyo to defeat Sangyin Pajun. Kill, kill, kill. Sangyin Army Destroyer's battle-intense sword. His 3-meter-tall body was filled with shocking flames, and the space was distorted by the heat. His body was covered in a layer of armor with runes flowing on it. He looked like an invincible god of fire. The two of them exchanged another 100 moves. Boom. In the end, Qin Huai's 7 injuries fist landed on the body of Sangyin Pajun, sending him flying. However, the Raging King Kong controlled the huge wolf-tooth club and smashed it onto Qin Huai's body. Qin Wuyo coughed up a mouthful of blood. His body was sent flying out of the fighting ring like a cannonball. Qin Wuyo and Sangyin Pajun flew out of the fighting ring almost at the same time. Then they took out healing divine pills at the same time and started to heal their injuries. This battle was still undecided, and it ended with both sides suffering. With that, the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Manor still had 6 people, while the Qin Heaven Starfield only had 9 people left. Buzz! The sound of a sword rang out. In the direction of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, a sword light flashed, and a black-robed young man landed on the battle stage. This black-clothed young man carried a long sword on his back. His body was straight like a divine sword. Boom! The divine power in his body erupted like a volcano, and a beam of sword chi shot into the sky. What a terrifying sword intent! Many people were shocked when they sensed the terrifying sword intent. Even Mo Jui, Sword Dao Wuji and the others were shocked. This person was also at the Divine Sun level. He controlled divine-grade divine power, and his cultivation was at the 6th level of the heavenly deity realm. Moreover, he was a terrifying sword cultivator. An absolute sword. You're also a sword cultivator. Come down and fight. Let me see what kind of strength the Qin Heaven Star region's absolute sword cultivator has. The eyes of the Sword of Extinction looked at the Sword Way of Infinity, and his eyes were like a divine sword. Just what I wanted. His swordsmanship was boundless, and he also revealed a strong fighting will. He took a step forward and appeared on the fighting ring. His body also burst out with a shocking sword will. Boom. Before the two of them had even started fighting, their sword intents were already clashing in the void, triggering streams of sword chi that spread in all directions. Bang! Bang! Their eyes met, and two tiny sword chi shot out from their eyes, clashing in the air. Buzz! Buzz! Then the sound of two swords resounded through the sky. The two of them drew their swords at the same time. The sword light was as bright as the stars, so bright that some people couldn't even open their eyes. Clang! Clang! In midair, the sound of intense clashes could be heard. The crowd could no longer see the two figures. They could only see two sword lights clashing and crisscrossing on the fighting ring. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2932 Power of the Extinctive Sword. The two sword lights appeared on the right side of the fighting ring and then on the left side, constantly changing. Every time they collided, endless sword chi would burst out in all directions, forming a terrible storm of sword chi. Fortunately, they were on the fighting stage, which was surrounded by a powerful formation. The formation appeared and blocked all the sword chi storms. Otherwise, it would have caused a terrible disaster. The two of them fought for a while before suddenly stopping, and the two figures flew back. Two figures, one in black and one in white, stood on both sides of the fighting ring with long swords in their hands. However, it could be seen that Sword Dao Wuxia's breathing was a little hurried, while the Extinctive Sword's breathing was calm. Could it be that Sword Dao Wuxia is about to lose? Many people's hearts sank. The power of the sword way of the Sword of Fatality was indeed shocking. The sword was fast and decisive, like a graceful swan. In the confrontation just now, he had a slight advantage. Is this all you've got in the way of the sword? That's too disappointing. Next, it's time to decide the winner. Myriad Sword Domain, God-slaying sword. You're courting death. An indifferent voice came out of the Sword of Fatality's mouth. Then he waved his hand, and the combat sword in his hand floated above his head, vibrating slightly. An NBSP 111. Waves of strange field energy spread out from the Sword of Fatality, and countless sword shadows suddenly appeared around his body. It really did look like countless swords. In any case, it was impossible to tell how many sword shadows there were at a glance. Whoosh! Whoosh! Countless sword shadows stabbed toward Sword Dao Wuxia. Break, die! Sword Dao Wuxia shouted. Sword light bloomed from his hand and slashed at the sword shadows. However, the moment he touched it, his expression changed. The power of the sword shadows was extremely terrifying. Each sword shadow seemed to be the full power strike of the absolute sword. The power of so many sword shadows added up was really amazing. As soon as they touched, the sword light of Sword Dao Wuxia was shattered. His body trembled and he retreated quickly, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Several wounds appeared on his body and blood flowed out. What a terrifying secret skill. The combat strength of this extinctive sword is amazing. At this moment, Ice Fairy, Red Flame, Demonic Pine, and Emojui all exclaimed in shock. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The combat strength of this extinctive sword was indeed terrifying. It was much stronger than Qin Huai's. Hehe, Absolute Sword's talent is very outstanding even in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. There are not many who can match him in a battle of the same level. In the Qin Heaven Star region, don't even think about winning against him in a battle of the same level. In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, a young man sneered. Lose? The Absolute Sword's cold voice rang out. He continued to control the sword shadow and attacked the Absolute Sword. Ancient God Body, die. Sword Dao Wuxia roared. His body grew rapidly, turning into an orange-armored ancient god that was 100 meters tall. The sword in his hand also grew rapidly, and he swept out a sword light as large as a mountain. Bang! Bang! A series of clashing sounds rang out. After the infinite sword way had turned into an ancient god body, its strength had increased greatly, and it finally jumped away from many sword shadows. This is ancient god body? In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, a young man exclaimed in surprise, looking very surprised. I didn't expect that someone in the tiny Qin Heaven Starfield would actually cultivate an ancient god body. What a surprise. In the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion, an old man stroked his beard and nodded in surprise. I'm surprised, but he's only an orange-armored ancient god body. He's still no match for the Sword of Fatality, the golden-robed young man said coldly. They seemed to have a good understanding of the ancient god body. They did not hide anything in their conversation. Lu Ming and the rest heard everything. Could it be that there's someone in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion who has also cultivated the ancient god body? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he could not help but guess. The ancient gods were said to be powerful existences born naturally at the beginning of the universe. At that time there were quite a number of ancient gods. Since they could leave behind descendants and inheritances in the Qin Heaven star system, it was extremely possible that there were other ancient gods who had left behind descendants and inheritances in other places. Lu's Wuji's sword Dao turned into an ancient god. He waved his long sword and attacked the sword of fatality. And Nbsp, a mere orange-armored ancient god wants to defeat me? Naive. The sword of fatality only showed a trace of surprise at the beginning, but it quickly regained its calm. With a wave of its hands, endless sword shadows whistled toward the sword Dao Wuji. The endless sword shadows gathered into a long river and rushed toward sword Dao Wuji. Wuji Kendo was 100 meters tall. When he wielded his giant sword, he was like a stone pillar in the river, resisting the impact of the river water. However, no matter how tough the stone pillar was, it would eventually be washed down under the constant impact of the river water. It was just like the boundless sword Dao. At first he could still resist and even charge forward, but his charging speed became slower and slower. A moment later, not only could he not move forward, he was even retreating. Bus, and NBSP whoosh. Countless sword shadows slashed on sword Dao Wuji's body and the orange scales on his body, making clanking sounds and sending sparks in all directions. In the end, the scales on sword Dao Wuji's body cracked open, and sword marks appeared, causing blood to flow. He could no longer defend himself, and the wounds on his body were getting bigger and bigger. Bang! In the end, Wuji's body shrank rapidly. He could no longer maintain his ancient god body and returned to his normal form. He flew out of the fighting ring and fell heavily off it. Wuji, how are you? Immediately, experts from the Eternal Sword sect went up to help heal Wuji's sword Dao. On the fighting ring, the sword of extinction waved his hand and the sword shadows that filled the sky disappeared without a trace. He stood on the fighting ring calmly and looked around. Who is it? Let's fight again. His gaze swept across the red flame demon pine, ice fairy and Emojui. In his opinion, only these 3 people from the Qin Heaven starfield could fight him. I'll do it. I'll try my best to consume his god power. If I can't defeat him, you guys go. Emojui said to the red flame magic pine and ice fairy. The red flame demon pine and ice fairy were both stronger than him, so it was not the time to fight yet. With that, Emojui rushed up the fighting ring. 6th level celestial deity, just by relying on your cultivation, you're similarly not my match. The sword of fatality spoke indifferently. There was no arrogance in his voice, as if he was speaking the truth. Don't be too full of yourself, we'll only know after the battle. Emojui said coldly and stepped forward. Bang, bang. After taking a few steps, Emojui's body rapidly expanded, turning into an orange-armored ancient god that was 100 meters tall. Emojui used his full strength the moment he attacked. It's the ancient god body again. I didn't expect that there would be more than one person in the Qin Heaven starfield who has cultivated the ancient god body. Someone from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion was shocked. It seems that an ancient god world has appeared in the Qin Heaven star region. With the appearance of the ancient god's inheritance, there will be a situation where many people have cultivated the ancient god body. In a remote star region, it is considered rare to have such an opportunity. An old man from the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion said. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.